There's a strange weight many of us carry, one that doesn't feel heavy until we pause to notice it. It lingers in the pit of your stomach after a phone call, swirls in your mind as you replay conversations, and leaves you restless when you should be at peace. It's the weight of relationships that don't feel right anymore, connections that were once warm and nourishing but have turned into something else entirely. We often tell ourselves stories to justify staying in these bonds. They mean well. It's not that bad. Family is forever. These phrases loop in our heads, masking the quiet truth. Some relationships, even deeply personal ones, become harmful over time. Yet, cutting ties can feel impossible. The thought of breaking away tugs at our hearts and stirs guilt, fear, and hesitation. After all, we're taught to hold on, to endure, to never give up on those we love. But at what cost? A Stoic lens offers us a refreshing perspective. It asks us to look inward and question not just how others treat us, but how we allow ourselves to be treated. Epictetus reminds us, "You are not disturbed by things, but by the views you take of them." This wisdom isn't about becoming indifferent or cold-hearted. It's about cultivating the courage to step back and see when a connection is no longer serving your well-being. It's about choosing peace over turmoil, self-respect over guilt, and growth over stagnation. But how do you know when it's time? When does loyalty stop being virtuous and start becoming a chain? Let's explore a story that captures this quiet struggle, a story many of us might find familiar in some way. Grace had known Lena since the second grade. They were inseparable back then. Two kids navigating playground politics, swapping sandwiches at lunch, and whispering secrets during sleepovers. Through high school, Lena was Grace's constant. She was there during Grace's first heartbreak, cheering her on at every milestone. If someone asked Grace about her life, Lena was always part of the story. But something shifted in their 20s. Lena had a knack for finding drama, and Grace became her go-to emotional lifeline. At first, it felt natural. That's what friends were for, right? Grace would pick up the phone at 2 a.m. when Lena's latest relationship crumbled, cancel plans to console her, and even lend money when Lena's impulsive spending habits left her short on rent. Grace thought she was being a good friend, a dependable anchor in Lena's stormy life. Years passed, and Grace started to notice a pattern. Lena never asked about her life, never showed up when Grace needed her. Conversations revolved around Lena's problems, her emotions, her chaos. Grace began to feel invisible, her own struggles drowned out by Lena's endless drama. Still, she held on. "This is just how Lena is," she told herself. "She doesn't mean to take me for granted." But one evening, as Grace sat on her couch, staring at yet another ignored message she'd sent Lena, something inside her shifted. Earlier that day, Grace had shared exciting news about a promotion at work, a moment she'd worked years to achieve. Lena's response was lukewarm at best, a distracted, "That's cool," before diving into her own latest crisis. It hit Grace like a cold wave. She was pouring her heart into a friendship that left her feeling empty. Grace tried to address it. She gently brought up how one-sided things had felt. Lena dismissed her, saying, "You're overthinking it. I always show up for you when it matters." Grace wanted to believe that. But when she thought back, she couldn't remember the last time Lena truly had. The turning point came weeks later. Lena, once again, called late at night. Grace was in bed, exhausted from a long day. Her phone buzzed persistently, but this time she didn't pick up. As the buzzing stopped, Grace felt a pang of guilt, followed by an unexpected wave of relief. She realized she didn't owe her energy to someone who wouldn't reciprocate it. It wasn't anger or bitterness that settled in her heart. It was clarity. For the first time in years, Grace understood that letting go didn't mean she didn't care for Lena. It meant she cared enough about herself to stop allowing a relationship to drain her. Grace's story is one many of us can relate to. It's not just about friendships. It could be family, colleagues, or even romantic relationships. We stay because we remember the good times, because we're afraid of conflict, or because we don't want to feel like we're giving up. But holding on too tightly to connections that harm us is like trying to swim with weights tied to our feet. It's not sustainable, and it's not fair to you or the other person. Stoicism teaches us that our time, energy, and emotions are precious. They are limited resources, and how we choose to invest them shapes the quality of our lives. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When we recognize the weight of unhealthy relationships, we regain control over where our strength is spent. It's not easy to let go. It takes courage to step back and reassess a connection, especially one with deep roots. But courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. It means moving forward despite it. In Grace's case, letting go of Lena wasn't an act of selfishness. It was an act of self-respect and self-care, a way to honor her own emotional boundaries. When we release relationships that no longer serve us, we create space for peace, for growth, and for healthier connections. Letting go doesn't have to be a dramatic goodbye or a bitter confrontation. It can be as simple as setting boundaries, saying no, or stepping back to prioritize your well-being. Ask yourself, does this relationship add value to my life, or does it drain me? Am I respected, heard, and valued in this connection? Do I feel free to be myself, or am I constantly walking on eggshells? Answering these questions isn't easy, but it's necessary. Relationships should uplift us, not weigh us down. And while every bond has its ups and downs, there's a difference between weathering life's challenges together and being dragged into someone else's storm. The weight of toxic relationships can be subtle, but suffocating. Recognizing when it's time to let go isn't about blame or resentment. It's about clarity and compassion, both for yourself and the other person. As Epictetus said, it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. Letting go teaches us the value of balance, of boundaries, and of our own inner peace. You don't have to rush the process. Take small steps, reflect, realign, and remind yourself that choosing peace isn't selfish. It's essential. It's a path to living authentically, to embracing the relationships that nourish you, and to freeing yourself from those that don't. Because at the end of the day, your energy, time, and emotional well-being deserve nothing less. When someone starts caring for you, it often feels like the purest expression of love. They offer advice, lend a helping hand, or simply listen. It feels warm, comforting, and genuine. Over time, though, there are moments when that care begins to feel different. Their advice starts sounding less like guidance and more like control. Their help comes with expectations. Their listening turns into judgment. It's not always obvious when care turns into manipulation, but it leaves you with a strange discomfort, a sense that your choices aren't fully your own anymore. Recognizing this shift is crucial, not only for protecting your autonomy, but for maintaining authentic relationships. When good intentions become a mask for manipulation, the damage is deeper than it appears. Understanding these dynamics helps you reclaim your power, draw healthier boundaries, and preserve what truly matters: your peace and freedom. The heart of manipulation often lies in subtlety. Rarely does it announce itself boldly. Instead, it weaves through interactions in ways that feel hard to pinpoint. At its core, manipulation distorts the foundation of care, making it less about mutual support and more about control. Often it begins innocently. A suggestion here, a little persuasion there. Over time, these moments compound until the relationship feels suffocating. One of the first signs that care has shifted into manipulation is when advice stops being optional and starts becoming an expectation. The person may phrase it as a suggestion, but their reaction to your decisions tells another story. A well-meaning friend who once offered opinions now makes you feel guilty for not following their advice. A family member who used to help with small tasks now insists you rely on their way of doing things. The freedom to choose slips away as their preferences dominate the dynamic. This control often wears the disguise of protection. They tell you they just want what's best for you, but their actions reveal a deeper need to have authority over your choices. They may question your decisions repeatedly, frame your independence as recklessness, or subtly belittle your ability to manage without them. What might start as concern for your well-being can quickly become a way to dictate how you live. The manipulation deepens when emotional tactics enter the picture. If you try to assert yourself, they might respond with disappointment or even sadness, making you question your stance. Phrases like, "I was only trying to help," or "After all I've done for you," carry undertones of guilt, steering you toward compliance. Manipulators often exploit your empathy, knowing you'll feel bad for upsetting them, even when standing up for yourself is entirely justified. Another hallmark of manipulation disguised as care is the creation of dependence. Initially, their help seems kind and generous. They go out of their way to make your life easier. But as time goes on, you realize that their assistance isn't as selfless as it seemed. They subtly encourage reliance, making it difficult for you to function without them. Whether it's financial support, decision-making, or even emotional validation, their involvement becomes an essential thread in your life. The more you lean on them, the harder it feels to push back when their control becomes overbearing. This dynamic is often reinforced by a sense of obligation. Manipulators excel at reminding you of everything they've done for you. They'll recount sacrifices they've made, the times they saved you, or the ways they were there when no one else was. These reminders aren't meant to inspire gratitude. They're meant to create a debt, one that you feel compelled to repay by complying with their wishes. The relationship becomes less about connection and more about balancing a ledger they've imposed. Over time, this kind of manipulation can erode your confidence and decision-making ability. When someone consistently undermines your choices, it's easy to start doubting yourself. You may find yourself seeking their approval for even the smallest decisions, afraid of the backlash if you act independently. This gradual erosion of self-trust is one of manipulation's most harmful effects. It chips away at your autonomy, leaving you feeling unsure and dependent. Manipulative care also thrives on shifting goalposts. No matter what you do to meet their expectations, it never seems to be enough. They might praise you for one thing, only to criticize you for something else moments later. This inconsistency keeps you on edge, always striving to please them, but never feeling secure in your efforts. It's an exhausting cycle that drains your emotional energy and diminishes your sense of self-worth. Another subtle but powerful tactic manipulators use is selective kindness. They know when to turn on the charm, offering support or affection just when you start to pull away. These moments of warmth can be confusing because they remind you of why you valued the relationship in the first place. But they're not genuine. They're calculated moves to keep you within their influence. This push and pull dynamic can leave you feeling trapped, torn between loyalty and the desire for freedom. One of the most insidious aspects of manipulation is how it reshapes your reality. Manipulators are skilled at reframing situations to suit their narrative. They may downplay your concerns, dismiss your feelings as overreactions, or even convince you that their control is for your own good. Over time, this gaslighting can make you question your perceptions, leaving you doubting not just the relationship, but your ability to trust your own instincts. Breaking free from these dynamics requires clarity and courage. The first step is acknowledging what's happening without judgment or guilt. Recognize the patterns of control, the emotional hooks, and the ways your autonomy has been compromised. Naming the issue is empowering. It helps you see the relationship for what it truly is, not what you've been led to believe. Once you've identified the manipulation, setting boundaries becomes essential. Boundaries aren't walls to shut people out. They're tools to protect your well-being while maintaining healthier connections. Communicate your limits calmly and assertively, making it clear what you will and won't tolerate. Remember, boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about giving yourself the freedom to live authentically. Reclaiming your autonomy also means reconnecting with your inner voice. Spend time reflecting on what matters to you, independent of others' opinions or expectations. Practice small acts of self-trust, like making decisions without seeking validation or speaking up for yourself in situations where you'd usually stay silent. Each step strengthens your confidence and reinforces your ability to navigate relationships on your terms. Detaching from manipulative relationships can be painful, especially when they involve loved ones. But detachment doesn't have to mean severing ties completely. It can be as simple as reducing the influence they have over your life, choosing when and how you engage with them, and refusing to let their actions dictate your self-worth. In some cases, however, walking away entirely may be the healthiest choice, an act of self-preservation, not selfishness. Healing from manipulation is a journey, but it's one that leads to greater freedom and inner peace. As you disentangle yourself from these dynamics, you'll rediscover the power of genuine care, relationships that uplift, empower, and respect your autonomy. You'll learn to distinguish between support and control, between love and obligation. And in doing so, you'll create space for connections that truly align with your values. Through it all, Stoicism offers guidance. Its principles remind us that we are responsible for how we respond to life's challenges, including difficult relationships. By embracing clarity, setting boundaries, and prioritizing inner peace, we reclaim the agency that manipulation seeks to steal. We learn that true strength lies not in enduring unhealthy dynamics, but in choosing relationships that honor our worth. The journey may not be easy, but it's worth it. In the end, breaking free from manipulative care isn't just about removing toxicity from your life. It's about stepping into your power, choosing peace, and embracing the relationships that nourish your soul. Recognizing manipulation in relationships is a powerful step toward reclaiming your peace. But it's just one part of the journey. Sometimes the damage of a connection isn't overt or calculated. It's quieter, more pervasive. It's the exhaustion that seeps into your bones after a conversation, the heaviness that lingers long after an interaction ends. This kind of emotional drain doesn't shout for attention. It quietly erodes your energy, your joy, and your sense of self. When relationships consistently leave you feeling depleted, it's time to assess whether they truly serve your well-being. Emotional exhaustion isn't always about loud conflicts or dramatic betrayals. More often, it's about subtle, recurring dynamics that take more than they give. These connections demand a deeper reflection, as they can affect not just your mental state, but your overall quality of life. At its core, emotional exhaustion arises when relationships become unbalanced. One person's needs, emotions, or demands dominate the dynamic, leaving little room for reciprocity. These interactions feel like a one-way street, where you're expected to give endlessly while receiving little in return. This imbalance isn't always intentional, but its effects are undeniable. You find yourself dreading interactions, feeling drained after every encounter, and questioning why the relationship feels more like a chore than a connection. This exhaustion can stem from various patterns. One common source is emotional dumping, where the other person consistently uses you as their outlet for venting without regard for your capacity to handle it. While it's natural for friends and loved ones to share their struggles, a relationship becomes draining when it's entirely one-sided. If someone continuously unloads their burdens onto you without showing interest in your life, it creates an unhealthy dynamic. Over time, you may feel more like a therapist than a friend, with little energy left for your own needs. Another contributing factor is chronic negativity. Relationships with individuals who constantly focus on what's wrong, whether in their lives, in the world, or in your choices, can sap your emotional strength. These interactions often feel like walking through a cloud of gloom, where every silver lining is met with a dark cloud. This negativity doesn't just dampen your mood, it can make you question your optimism and outlook, leaving you emotionally depleted. Emotional exhaustion also arises when you're consistently walking on eggshells. In these relationships, you find yourself overly cautious about what you say or do, fearing it might trigger anger, disappointment, or criticism. The tension of constantly monitoring your behavior to avoid conflict is mentally and emotionally taxing. It creates a state of hypervigilance that leaves little room for genuine connection or relaxation. A subtle but equally draining dynamic is being in a relationship where your efforts are rarely acknowledged or appreciated. When you give your time, energy, or support without recognition, it can lead to feelings of being taken for granted. This lack of appreciation erodes the joy of giving and leaves you questioning your value in the relationship. Over time, this unreciprocated effort creates a sense of emptiness and exhaustion. One of the most challenging aspects of emotionally draining relationships is the guilt that often accompanies them. You may feel obligated to stay, fearing that stepping back would make you a bad person or that you're abandoning someone in need. This guilt becomes a powerful tether, keeping you tied to a dynamic that's harming your well-being. It's essential to recognize that prioritizing your mental and emotional health isn't selfish. It's necessary. The effects of emotional exhaustion extend beyond the relationship itself. Over time, these draining connections can impact your overall energy levels, motivation, and even physical health. Chronic stress from these interactions can lead to symptoms like fatigue, headaches, and difficulty concentrating. It can also affect your other relationships, as the emotional toll leaves you with less to give to the people who truly uplift you. Reclaiming your energy starts with recognizing the signs of emotional exhaustion. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with someone. If you consistently leave interactions feeling drained, anxious, or frustrated, it's worth exploring the reasons behind those feelings. Reflect on the patterns in the relationship, whether it's one-sided giving, constant negativity, or a lack of respect for your boundaries. Setting boundaries is a crucial step in addressing emotional exhaustion. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about creating space for yourself to thrive. Communicate your limits clearly and kindly, letting the other person know what you need to maintain a healthier balance. For example, if someone tends to vent excessively, you can say, "I care about you, but I also need time to focus on my own well-being. Can we find a way to balance our conversations?" Sometimes, stepping back from the relationship is necessary to protect your energy. This doesn't have to be a dramatic decision. It can be as simple as reducing the frequency of interactions or shifting the dynamics of the relationship. By creating distance, you give yourself the space to recharge and reflect on what you truly need from your connections. It's also important to replenish your energy through self-care and nurturing relationships that uplift you. Surround yourself with people who inspire, support, and celebrate you. These connections act as a counterbalance to emotionally draining ones, reminding you of the joy and reciprocity that healthy relationships bring. Learning to recognize and address emotional exhaustion is a journey of self-awareness and self-respect. It's about valuing your energy and understanding that not all connections are meant to last forever. By prioritizing your well-being, you create space for the relationships that nourish you and let go of those that deplete you. As you navigate this process, remember that it's okay to outgrow certain relationships. Growth often requires shedding what no longer serves you, even when it's difficult. Trust that by honoring your energy and setting boundaries, you're making room for connections that align with your values and bring genuine fulfillment. The path to emotional freedom begins with recognizing your worth and choosing to protect it. Emotional exhaustion reveals the toll of one-sided or draining relationships, yet at the heart of these dynamics often lies a deeper issue: the absence of mutual respect. When respect diminishes, the foundation of any connection begins to crumble. Respect isn't a luxury in relationships, it's the glue that holds them together. Without it, even the strongest bonds weaken over time, leaving behind frustration, resentment, and a sense of betrayal. Respect is not just about polite words or surface gestures. It's the acknowledgement of your worth, boundaries, and individuality. It's reflected in how people treat you when you express your opinions, make decisions, or stand up for yourself. When respect is present, interactions feel balanced, empowering, and genuine. When it's absent, the relationship becomes unsteady, often leaving you feeling dismissed or devalued. One clear sign of lost respect is disregard for boundaries. Healthy relationships honor the invisible lines that define your comfort and limits. When someone repeatedly crosses those lines, it signals a lack of consideration for your well-being. They may ignore your requests, invade your personal space, or dismiss your need for time alone. This behavior chips away at the sense of safety and trust that respect provides. Another way respect vanishes is through dismissive communication. Interrupting, belittling, or speaking over you are subtle yet powerful ways to undermine your voice. These behaviors send the message that your opinions or feelings don't matter. Over time, they can erode your confidence and leave you questioning whether your perspective is even valid. This lack of respect isn't always loud or obvious. It can manifest in passive-aggressive comments, sarcastic remarks, or a condescending tone. In some relationships, the absence of respect shows up as a refusal to take accountability. When mistakes happen, respectful individuals own up to their actions and make amends. But those who lack respect often deflect blame, deny their role in conflicts, or shift responsibility onto others. This refusal to acknowledge their impact not only harms the relationship, but also leaves you carrying the weight of unresolved issues. Another hallmark of disrespect is an imbalance in effort. Relationships thrive on mutual investment, both parties contributing time, energy, and care. When respect is absent, one person may consistently take without giving, leaving the other to bear the brunt of maintaining the connection. This imbalance creates resentment and reinforces the idea that your efforts are undervalued. Disrespect also surfaces when someone invalidates your emotions. When your feelings are dismissed as overreactions or irrelevant, it sends a clear signal that your experiences are not valued. This invalidation can leave you feeling isolated, as though your emotional reality doesn't deserve acknowledgement. Over time, it creates a sense of detachment, making it harder to trust or connect with the other person. A more overt sign of disrespect is constant criticism. Feedback is a normal part of relationships, but when it crosses the line into relentless fault-finding, it becomes harmful. Criticism that focuses on tearing you down rather than building you up reflects a lack of care for your self-esteem. Instead of fostering growth, it creates insecurity and self-doubt. Respect is also tested in moments of disagreement. Healthy relationships allow for differing opinions without diminishing the other person's value. However, when respect is absent, disagreements turn into battles for dominance. The goal shifts from understanding to winning, and conversations become opportunities to assert power rather than foster connection. The absence of respect can also manifest through neglect. This isn't about forgetting a birthday or missing a call. It's a pattern of indifference toward your needs and experiences. Neglect shows up when someone consistently fails to check in, offer support, or show interest in your life. This lack of engagement can make you feel invisible, as though your presence in the relationship is taken for granted. Another subtle but damaging sign of disrespect is the exploitation of trust. Respectful individuals honor the vulnerability that trust requires. When someone betrays that trust, whether through lies, secrecy, or broken promises, they undermine the foundation of the relationship. Each act of betrayal leaves a mark, making it harder to feel safe or valued within the connection. Rebuilding respect in a relationship requires open communication and a willingness to address these behaviors. Start by expressing your feelings calmly and clearly, focusing on specific instances that made you feel disrespected. Avoid blaming or accusing. Instead, share how the behavior affected you and what you need moving forward. This approach encourages understanding and creates an opportunity for growth. However, it's important to recognize that not everyone is willing or able to change. In these cases, setting firm boundaries becomes essential. Boundaries are not about punishing the other person. They're about protecting your own well-being. If someone continues to disregard your boundaries despite your efforts to communicate, it may be necessary to reevaluate the relationship. Respect is a two-way street, and its absence cannot be addressed by one person alone. Both parties must be committed to creating a dynamic where each feels valued and heard. This mutual effort strengthens the connection and fosters an environment where trust and appreciation can flourish. When respect is restored, relationships regain their balance. Conversations become more meaningful, conflicts are resolved with care, and both individuals feel empowered to express themselves fully. But when respect is consistently absent, it's a sign that the relationship may no longer serve your growth or happiness. Letting go of disrespectful relationships is not an act of hostility, it's an act of self-respect. By choosing connections that honor your worth, you create space for the kind of relationships that uplift and inspire you. Respect is not just a foundation for healthy relationships. It's a reflection of how you value yourself and the standards you set for your interactions. As you navigate this journey, remember that respect is non-negotiable. It is the cornerstone of trust, understanding, and love. When it's present, relationships thrive. When it's absent, they wither. By prioritizing respect, you not only enrich your relationships, but also reaffirm your commitment to living authentically and with dignity. When respect begins to fade in a relationship, trust often follows. Trust is the silent cornerstone of every bond, built not just through grand gestures, but through consistent, everyday acts of reliability. It's not the words someone speaks, but the actions they follow through on that solidified trust. Over time, when promises are made and broken repeatedly, the foundation of trust begins to crumble. The harm caused by broken promises is rarely immediate. It erodes relationships slowly, like water carving away at stone. Promises are not just words, they are agreements, expressions of commitment that create expectations. When those commitments are unfulfilled, the disappointment lingers long after the moment passes. Broken promises do more than let someone down in the moment. They plant seeds of doubt, leaving the affected person questioning whether they can rely on the other again. It's not just the broken promise itself that hurts. It's the message it sends. Your time, feelings, or needs were not prioritized. At first, one broken promise might seem small, even forgivable. A missed appointment, an overlooked favor, or a forgotten commitment might feel like a harmless mistake. But when this becomes a pattern, it changes the way you view the person. Their words lose weight, their assurances begin to feel hollow, and you find yourself bracing for disappointment rather than hoping for follow-through. This gradual erosion of trust is one of the most insidious effects of broken promises. The impact of broken promises is often magnified when they involve deeper emotional commitments. In relationships, promises are often tied to security and reassurance. Promises to be there in difficult times, to listen, to support. When these are broken, the hurt goes beyond disappointment. It strikes at the heart of what makes a connection feel safe. You begin to wonder if their commitment to the relationship was genuine or if their words were merely convenient in the moment. Another layer of harm emerges when broken promises are justified with excuses. When someone repeatedly explains away their failure to follow through, it shifts the focus from accountability to avoidance. They might say they were too busy, that it slipped their mind, or that it wasn't a big deal. While these justifications may sound reasonable, they sidestep the real issue, a lack of consistency. Over time, the person on the receiving end feels not only let down, but dismissed, as though their feelings about the unfulfilled promise don't matter. The erosion of trust through broken promises doesn't just affect the specific relationship, it can change the way you approach trust in general. When someone close to you repeatedly lets you down, it's natural to become more guarded, even with others who haven't broken your trust. This defensive mindset can protect you from future hurt, but also creates barriers to forming meaningful, open connections. One of the most damaging aspects of broken promises is the doubt they create about your own judgment. When you place trust in someone and they repeatedly fail to meet their commitments, you may start questioning whether you were wrong to believe in them in the first place. This self-doubt can be difficult to shake, as it challenges your ability to trust not only others, but also yourself. Rebuilding trust after a series of broken promises requires more than apologies. It demands consistent action over time. Words alone cannot restore what was lost. It's through dependable behavior that trust begins to mend. For the person who has broken promises, this means taking full accountability, acknowledging the hurt caused, and committing to change. This process is not quick, nor is it guaranteed to succeed. Rebuilding trust requires both parties to engage with honesty and patience. For the person affected by broken promises, setting boundaries becomes essential. It's important to communicate your expectations clearly and to hold the other person accountable when they fall short. This doesn't mean being unforgiving, but it does mean refusing to accept repeated excuses without evidence of genuine effort to improve. Boundaries protect your emotional well-being and ensure that you're not continually hurt by the same patterns. In some cases, the pattern of broken promises may signal a deeper issue in the relationship. It may indicate a lack of commitment, respect, or alignment in values. When this is the case, it's worth reflecting on whether the relationship is worth continuing. Ending a relationship is never easy, especially when there's history and emotional investment. But staying in a dynamic where trust is consistently eroded can take an even greater toll on your well-being. Recognizing and addressing broken promises is not just about protecting yourself from disappointment. It's about fostering relationships that are built on mutual reliability and respect. Healthy relationships are not free of mistakes, but they are grounded in the understanding that commitments matter. When promises are kept, they strengthen the bond between two people, creating a sense of security and partnership that can weather challenges. Ultimately, trust is one of the most valuable elements of any connection. It's earned through actions, not words, and preserved through consistency, care, and respect. When trust is broken, the path to healing requires effort, honesty, and a willingness to grow. And when trust cannot be restored, the decision to walk away becomes an act of self-respect, a choice to prioritize your peace over the uncertainty of an unreliable bond. By recognizing the cumulative impact of broken promises, you take a step toward valuing your worth and safeguarding your emotional health. Trust, once lost, can be rebuilt, but it requires more than intention. It requires action. In relationships where action is absent, letting go may be the truest act of strength and self-preservation. Through this process, you make space for connections that honor commitments, uphold trust, and bring genuine fulfillment to your life. Trust, once eroded by broken promises, leaves a wound that can take time to heal. But sometimes, what cuts even deeper than words unkept is the absence of words altogether. Silence, when used intentionally in relationships, can be far more destructive than harsh arguments or unkind remarks. The weight of toxic silence isn't just felt in the quiet moments. It lingers, creating tension, confusion, and emotional isolation. When silence becomes a tool for control or punishment, it's no longer a neutral act. It's a weapon. In its healthiest form, silence can be restorative. Pausing to reflect, giving space during a heated moment, or simply enjoying a companionable quiet are all examples of silence that strengthens connections. But when silence is wielded as a form of avoidance, manipulation, or rejection, it morphs into something damaging. Toxic silence thrives on leaving things unsaid, using the absence of communication to assert power, and creating emotional uncertainty. The most insidious form of toxic silence is the silent treatment. This occurs when one person purposefully withholds communication as a way to punish or control the other. Unlike healthy pauses, which allow emotions to settle, the silent treatment leaves the other person stranded, unsure of how to interpret the lack of response. The message is clear: you don't matter enough to warrant acknowledgement. Over time, this erodes self-esteem and fosters anxiety, leaving the recipient constantly guessing what they did wrong. Toxic silence can also appear as avoidance. Instead of addressing issues, one person may withdraw completely, refusing to engage in meaningful dialogue. This avoidance creates a vacuum where problems fester, leaving conflicts unresolved and feelings unheard. The person left in the silence may begin to feel invisible, their concerns dismissed as unworthy of discussion. Avoidance can be as loud as shouting. It sends the same message: your voice doesn't matter here. Another subtle yet powerful form of toxic silence is emotional withholding. In this dynamic, someone refrains from sharing their thoughts, feelings, or affections, creating an emotional distance that leaves the other person feeling alone in the relationship. This withholding can be devastating, as it denies the emotional intimacy and vulnerability that form the foundation of healthy bonds. Over time, it becomes harder to bridge the gap, leading to a sense of disconnection and mistrust. Silence can also manifest in a refusal to validate. Validation isn't about agreeing with everything the other person says. It's about acknowledging their experience as real and meaningful. When someone meets your concerns or emotions with silence, it can feel like a rejection of your reality. This invalidation breeds frustration, resentment, and a growing sense of being unheard. Toxic silence isn't always intentional. Sometimes people resort to silence out of fear of conflict, rejection, or saying the wrong thing. While the intent may not be to harm, the impact is the same. Silence leaves a void where understanding and connection could exist. It shuts down opportunities for growth, creating a relationship built on unspoken assumptions and lingering doubts. The weight of toxic silence is often heaviest when it comes after a conflict. Arguments are part of any relationship, but the silence that follows can determine whether the bond grows stronger or weaker. Healthy silence allows space for reflection, but toxic silence creates an emotional distance that feels impossible to cross. It turns a moment of disagreement into a lingering wound, where the absence of resolution becomes the loudest statement. One of the most damaging effects of toxic silence is the way it shifts the balance of power in a relationship. The person initiating the silence often holds the control, leaving the other in a state of emotional limbo. This imbalance undermines mutual respect and equality, creating a dynamic where one person feels diminished and the other avoids accountability. Breaking free from the cycle of toxic silence begins with acknowledgement. Recognize when silence is being used as a tool for avoidance, manipulation, or control. Reflect on how it makes you feel and whether it aligns with the values of the relationship. Naming the issue is the first step in reclaiming your voice. Addressing toxic silence requires courage and clear communication. Approach the other person with empathy but assertiveness, expressing how their silence affects you. Use I statements to avoid blame and focus on your feelings. When there's silence between us, it leaves me feeling confused and disconnected. I want us to work through things together. This approach invites dialogue and encourages mutual understanding. Setting boundaries is also crucial. Let the other person know that while you respect their need for space, prolonged silence is not acceptable. Boundaries might include agreeing on a time frame for cooling off or committing to revisit the conversation when both parties are ready. Boundaries ensure that silence doesn't become a habitual way of avoiding issues. Sometimes silence persists despite your efforts to address it. In these cases, it's important to evaluate whether the relationship is healthy or whether the silence is a symptom of deeper incompatibilities. A relationship built on unresolved silence cannot thrive. It leaves too much unsaid, too many emotions unacknowledged. Healing from toxic silence also involves nurturing your own sense of worth. Silence can make you feel small, unimportant, or invisible, but those feelings do not define you. Reaffirm your value by surrounding yourself with people who hear, respect, and celebrate you. Strengthen your voice by practicing self-expression in safe spaces, whether through journaling, conversations with trusted friends, or creative outlets. In relationships where toxic silence is a recurring issue, seeking external support can be helpful. A therapist or counselor can provide tools to navigate these dynamics and foster healthier communication patterns. Sometimes, an objective perspective is needed to break through the barriers that silence creates. At its core, toxic silence undermines the very essence of connection. Relationships thrive on communication, words that heal, clarify, and bridge gaps. Silence, when weaponized, does the opposite. It isolates, confuses, and wounds. Choosing to address toxic silence is an act of courage and self-respect. It's a commitment to yourself and to the possibility of building relationships that uplift rather than diminish. As you confront toxic silence, remember that your voice matters. Your thoughts, feelings, and experiences deserve to be heard, valued, and acknowledged. By challenging silence, you take a step toward reclaiming your power and creating connections that honor your worth. When silence becomes a weapon in relationships, it undermines the very foundation of trust and connection. Yet, there's another silent question that many of us hesitate to confront. What if what binds you to someone isn't love, but the comfort of familiarity? Love, when genuine, feels vibrant and nourishing, while habit can feel like an echo, a pattern repeated so often that it becomes difficult to distinguish from true affection. The line between the two isn't always obvious, and recognizing the difference requires a willingness to look deeper. Habit in relationships isn't inherently negative. It often provides stability and a sense of predictability, creating a rhythm that anchors daily life. But when habit takes precedence over love, it can leave a relationship feeling stagnant, devoid of the passion, growth, and connection that make love thrive. Over time, the relationship may feel more like a routine than a bond, raising the question, are we staying together because of love or because it's all we've known? One of the key signs that a relationship may be more about habit than love is a lack of emotional engagement. Genuine love fosters curiosity about the other person, an ongoing interest in their thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Habit, on the other hand, can lead to complacency, where interactions become surface level and routine. You talk about the same things, follow the same patterns, but rarely dive deeper into each other's emotional worlds. This lack of depth can create a sense of distance, even in close proximity. Another indication of habit over love is the absence of shared growth. Love inspires mutual support and a desire to see each other flourish, while habit often resists change. If a relationship feels stuck in the past, with little room for evolution or new experiences, it may be rooted in habit rather than love. Growth requires effort, communication, and adaptability, qualities that habit alone cannot sustain. The dynamics of affection also provide insight. Love expresses itself in gestures, words, and actions that reflect genuine care and thoughtfulness. Habit can mimic these behaviors, but over time they may feel automatic or obligatory rather than heartfelt. A relationship built on love celebrates these moments as opportunities for connection, while habit turns them into rituals performed out of expectation. A critical distinction between love and habit lies in how conflicts are handled. Love seeks resolution and understanding, driven by a desire to protect and strengthen the bond. Habit, however, often avoids conflict or addresses it superficially, leading to unresolved tensions that accumulate over time. This avoidance can make the relationship feel emotionally stagnant, where issues are swept under the rug rather than confronted with care. The way you view your partner can also reveal whether love or habit dominates the relationship. In love, there's a sense of appreciation for who the other person truly is, including their flaws and quirks. Habit, however, may lead to a more detached perspective, where the other person becomes a fixture in your life rather than a source of inspiration or joy. This shift in perception can make the relationship feel less vibrant and more mechanical. Another subtle but telling sign is how you feel when you're apart. Love often carries a sense of longing or excitement to reconnect, while habit may leave you feeling indifferent or even relieved by the distance. This difference speaks to the emotional energy that love invests in the relationship compared to the passive reliance that habit fosters. It's also important to consider the role of physical intimacy. In loving relationships, intimacy is an expression of connection, trust, and affection. Habit, however, can reduce intimacy to a routine act, stripped of its emotional depth. Over time, this lack of genuine intimacy can create a sense of disconnection, leaving both partners feeling unfulfilled. Breaking free from the cycle of habit requires honesty, both with yourself and your partner. Start by reflecting on your feelings and the dynamics of the relationship. Ask yourself whether the connection feels alive and meaningful, or whether it's driven by routine and obligation. This self-awareness is the first step toward understanding what you truly want and need. Communication is equally crucial. Share your thoughts and feelings with your partner, creating a space for open and honest dialogue. This conversation isn't about assigning blame. It's about exploring whether both of you feel fulfilled and connected in the relationship. By approaching the discussion with empathy and curiosity, you create an opportunity to address the underlying issues together. If both partners are willing to work toward revitalizing the relationship, focus on reintroducing novelty and shared growth. This might involve exploring new experiences, rediscovering each other's interests, or setting goals that inspire mutual support. By breaking out of routine, you create opportunities for love to flourish and for the relationship to feel dynamic once again. However, it's important to recognize that not all relationships can be rekindled. In some cases, the bond may have been rooted in habit from the start, or may have shifted irreversibly over time. Letting go of such relationships isn't a failure, it's an act of courage and self-respect. It's a choice to create space for connections that align with your values and aspirations. Ultimately, distinguishing between love and habit is about seeking authenticity. Love invites growth, connection, and joy, while habit clings to familiarity at the expense of depth. By examining your relationships with honesty and compassion, you take a step toward building connections that truly nourish your heart and soul. In doing so, you honor not just the relationships in your life, but also the love you deserve to give and receive. When love turns into habit, it can quietly anchor you to a life of comfort at the expense of growth. While routine might feel safe, it can also limit the possibilities of what you could achieve, both individually and as a part of a relationship. This leads to an even more difficult realization. Some relationships, whether personal or professional, might actively hold you back from becoming the person you are meant to be. The most subtle yet damaging connections are those that prevent growth, not through malice, but through complacency, fear, or resistance to change. Growth is an essential part of life. It's what allows you to explore new opportunities, develop your skills, and deepen your understanding of yourself and the world around you. But growth also requires an environment that nurtures it, a space where you feel encouraged to dream bigger, take risks, and embrace challenges. When a relationship stunts your growth, it creates a ceiling you cannot break through, no matter how much you try. One of the clearest signs that a relationship is stunting your growth is a lack of encouragement. In healthy relationships, the people around you cheer for your successes and offer support during your struggles. They see your potential and inspire you to aim higher. In contrast, a relationship that holds you back often feels indifferent to your progress. Whether it's dismissive comments about your ambitions or a lack of interest in your achievements, this indifference can slowly chip away at your motivation. Another way relationships stunt growth is through fear of change. Growth often requires stepping out of your comfort zone, but not everyone is comfortable with change. If someone in your life constantly discourages you from taking risks or pursuing new paths, it might be because they fear how your growth will affect the relationship. They might frame their resistance as concern, warning you about potential failures or the risks involved. While these warnings might come from a place of care, they often reflect their own fears more than your reality. Control is another factor that can limit growth. In some relationships, one person may try to dictate the choices of the other, subtly or overtly. They may insist that you stick to a certain path or conform to their expectations, leaving little room for exploration or personal development. This control might be cloaked in well-meaning advice or a desire to protect you, but it ultimately serves to keep you tethered to their version of who you should be. Relationships that rely heavily on comparison can also stifle growth. When someone compares your progress to others, or even to their own, it creates an environment of competition rather than collaboration. Over time, this dynamic can discourage you from taking risks or pursuing your passions, as you fear falling short of expectations. A more subtle way relationships limit growth is through complacency. When a connection becomes comfortable to the point of stagnation, it can create a resistance to change in both individuals. The relationship becomes a bubble where growth feels unnecessary or even threatening. This dynamic often leads to a shared avoidance of challenges, as stepping out of the bubble would disrupt the status quo. Another sign of a growth-stunting relationship is a lack of accountability. Growth requires honest feedback and constructive criticism, But some relationships avoid these uncomfortable conversations. Instead, they prioritize harmony over honesty, leaving issues unaddressed and opportunities for growth unexplored. This avoidance may feel like support, but it ultimately denies you the chance to learn and improve. Relationships that stifle growth also tend to lack mutual inspiration. In a thriving connection, both individuals challenge each other to become better versions of themselves. They share ideas, exchange perspectives, and encourage each other's pursuits. When this dynamic is missing, the relationship can feel one-sided or uninspiring, leaving you feeling stuck or unmotivated. Toxic positivity can also hinder growth. While optimism is valuable, excessive positivity can dismiss the reality of struggles and challenges. In a relationship that overemphasizes good vibes, there's little room to process setbacks or explore uncomfortable truths. This avoidance of discomfort can prevent both individuals from addressing the deeper issues that are necessary for personal development. Sometimes, relationships stunt growth by fostering dependency. When one person relies heavily on the other for emotional, financial, or practical support, it can create an imbalance that limits both individuals. The dependent person may feel incapable of standing on their own, while the other may feel burdened by the constant responsibility. This dynamic leaves little room for growth, as both are stuck in roles that prevent them from exploring their full potential. Another factor to consider is the way conflict is handled. Growth often comes from facing and resolving disagreements, but some relationships avoid conflict altogether. This avoidance can create a surface-level harmony that hides deeper issues, preventing meaningful progress. Without the willingness to address and resolve conflicts, the relationship remains stagnant, leaving both parties unfulfilled. Recognizing a relationship that stunts your growth can be difficult, especially when there's history, love, or loyalty involved. It requires a willingness to reflect honestly on how the relationship makes you feel and whether it aligns with your goals and values. Start by asking yourself whether the relationship inspires you to grow or whether it leaves you feeling stuck. Consider whether your ambitions are supported or dismissed, and whether the connection feels empowering or limiting. Once you've identified the ways a relationship may be holding you back, the next step is to address it. Open communication is key. Share your feelings with the other person, expressing your desire for growth and the ways you feel the relationship could better support it. Approach the conversation with empathy and a focus on collaboration, framing it as an opportunity to strengthen the connection rather than a criticism. If the other person is willing to engage, work together to create an environment that nurtures growth. This might involve setting shared goals, exploring new experiences, or redefining the dynamics of the relationship to create more balance and inspiration. However, if the other person is resistant to change or unwilling to support your growth, it may be necessary to reevaluate the relationship. Letting go of a growth-stunting relationship is never easy, but it can be a necessary step toward fulfilling your potential. It's an act of self-respect and a commitment to living authentically. By choosing relationships that inspire and support you, you create a network of connections that uplift and empower you to become your best self. Growth is a natural and essential part of life. It's what drives us to explore, create, and thrive. By surrounding yourself with relationships that celebrate and nurture your growth, you open the door to endless possibilities. In doing so, you honor not only the relationships in your life, but also the person you are becoming. When relationships stunt your growth, They keep you from moving forward. But there's another force that holds you back even more powerfully: constant drama. The endless turmoil of unnecessary conflict doesn't just stop progress. It drains energy, clouds judgment, and traps you in a cycle of emotional exhaustion. Drama creates chaos where there should be peace, and it thrives on pulling you into situations that distract from what truly matters. Drama doesn't always enter relationships with grand gestures or explosive fights. Often, it starts small: little misunderstandings blown out of proportion, trivial issues turned into major arguments, or moments of tension magnified instead of resolved. These patterns, left unchecked, evolve into a cycle where conflict becomes the default state. The calm feels fleeting, always interrupted by the next storm. One of the clearest signs of constant drama is recurring conflict over the same issues. Instead of resolving problems, they resurface repeatedly, often with greater intensity. This lack of resolution stems from a deeper unwillingness to address the root cause. Whether it's ego, defensiveness, or an unwillingness to listen, these barriers prevent meaningful progress, keeping the relationship stuck in a loop of tension. Another hallmark of drama is the presence of overreaction. In healthy relationships, conflicts are met with patience and understanding, but in dramatic ones, even minor disagreements can trigger outsized emotional responses. This overreaction often serves to escalate the situation, creating unnecessary stress and tension. It shifts the focus from the issue at hand to the heightened emotions, making it harder to find a solution. Drama also thrives on miscommunication. Instead of clear and honest dialogue, interactions are marked by assumptions, passive aggressiveness, or indirectness. This lack of transparency fuels misunderstandings, which then spiral into larger conflicts. Miscommunication creates an environment where trust and clarity are replaced by doubt and suspicion, leaving both parties feeling unheard and unvalued. One of the most draining aspects of constant drama is its unpredictability. Dramatic relationships often lack stability, with emotions swinging from extreme highs to extreme lows. This volatility creates a sense of walking on eggshells, never knowing when the next conflict will arise. Over time, this instability takes a toll on emotional well-being, leaving you anxious and on edge. Drama isn't limited to arguments. It can also manifest through gossip, manipulation, or attention-seeking behavior. In these cases, the focus shifts from resolving issues to creating or maintaining conflict for its own sake. This pattern can be especially harmful as it prioritizes the drama itself over the relationship's health. It creates a toxic cycle where turmoil becomes the norm. Breaking free from constant drama begins with self-awareness. Recognize the patterns in the relationship that contribute to the turmoil. Reflect on whether the conflicts are productive or if they simply repeat without resolution. Understanding the role drama plays in the dynamic is the first step toward addressing it. Setting boundaries is crucial when dealing with constant drama. Boundaries provide a framework for healthier interactions, defining what behaviors are acceptable and what is not. For example, if a conversation starts to escalate into unnecessary conflict, you might say, "I'm happy to discuss this when we can both approach it calmly." This sets the tone for more constructive communication and limits the opportunity for drama to plays a central role in breaking the cycle of drama. Strive for honesty and clarity in your interactions, avoiding assumptions or indirectness. When addressing conflicts, focus on the issue itself rather than assigning blame or bringing up past grievances. This approach fosters understanding and reduces the likelihood of escalating tensions. Another important step is learning to detach emotionally from the drama. Drama thrives on reaction, so by choosing not to engage, you disrupt its cycle. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine issues. It means refusing to be drawn into unnecessary conflicts. Practice responding calmly and thoughtfully, even in the face of provocation. This detachment allows you to maintain your peace and approach situations with clarity. In some cases, reducing drama requires limiting your exposure to certain individuals or situations. If someone consistently brings conflict into your life, consider whether their presence aligns with your values and well-being. While it's not always possible to cut ties entirely, creating distance can protect your emotional energy and reduce the impact of their behavior. Self-care is also essential in navigating dramatic relationships. Drama can be emotionally draining, so it's important to replenish your energy through activities that bring you peace and joy. Surround yourself with people who uplift and support you, creating a network of positive influences that counterbalance the negativity of drama. Recognizing your own role in the cycle is equally important. Reflect on whether you might be contributing to the drama, even unintentionally. This isn't about blame. It's about taking responsibility for your actions and making changes where needed. For instance, if you find yourself reacting impulsively or engaging in gossip, consider how these behaviors might perpetuate conflict. Breaking free from drama doesn't mean avoiding all conflict. Disagreements are a natural part of relationships, but they should be opportunities for growth, not sources of endless turmoil. By focusing on resolution rather than escalation, you create an environment where conflicts can be addressed constructively and left in the past. Choosing peace over drama is a commitment to yourself and your well-being. It's a decision to prioritize clarity, stability, and meaningful connections over the chaos of unnecessary conflict. As you navigate this journey, remember that you have the power to set the tone for your relationships. By refusing to engage in drama, you create space for relationships that nurture rather than drain you. In the end, breaking free from constant drama isn't just about escaping conflict. It's about reclaiming your emotional energy and redirecting it toward the things that truly matter. It's about choosing relationships that align with your values and creating a life filled with peace and purpose. Through this process, you not only protect your well-being, but also set a standard for the kind of connections you deserve. Constant drama can exhaust even the strongest among us, but what's equally damaging, yet often quieter, is the feeling of invisibility in a relationship. To be unseen or unvalued by those closest to you leaves a wound that is hard to describe. It's a pain that lingers, not because of loud conflict or deliberate harm, but because of the silence and indifference that seem to say, "You don't matter." This sense of being overlooked strikes at the core of human connection, leaving you questioning your worth and place in the relationship. Feeling invisible doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in gradually, starting with small moments of neglect. You share something meaningful, and it's met with disinterest or distraction. You express a need, and it's ignored or brushed aside. Over time, these instances pile up, creating a chasm between you and the other person. It's not just about being unnoticed. It's about feeling like your presence and contributions are undervalued. One of the most painful aspects of invisibility is how it isolates you. Relationships are meant to provide connection, validation, and support. But when you feel invisible, it's as though you're alone, even when someone is physically present. This isolation isn't always deliberate. Often it stems from a lack of awareness or effort. Regardless of intent, the effect is the same. You're left feeling like an afterthought. Invisibility can also manifest through dismissive communication. When your words are frequently interrupted, dismissed, or ignored, it sends a clear message. What you have to say isn't important. This pattern diminishes your voice, making you hesitant to express yourself. Over time, the fear of being dismissed again can lead to silence, further deepening the sense of invisibility. A lack of acknowledgement is another way invisibility takes root. In healthy relationships, achievements, milestones, and even small victories are celebrated. But when these moments are met with indifference, it feels as though your efforts are meaningless. The absence of acknowledgement doesn't just diminish your joy. It makes you question whether your contributions are even noticed. Invisibility often goes hand in hand with emotional neglect. This doesn't mean outright rejection, but rather a consistent failure to engage with your emotions and experiences. When someone you care about doesn't ask how you're feeling, doesn't notice when you're struggling, or doesn't make an effort to understand your perspective, it creates a void where connection should be. This emotional distance leaves you feeling unseen and unsupported. Another layer of invisibility comes from unbalanced dynamics in a relationship. When one person's needs, preferences, or opinions consistently overshadow the others, it creates an environment where one party feels sidelined. This imbalance isn't always intentional, but its impact can be profound. It fosters resentment and leaves the overlooked person questioning their value in the relationship. One of the most insidious effects of invisibility is how it affects your self-perception. When your worth isn't reflected in the way others treat you, it's easy to internalize that message. You might start believing that you're not interesting enough, not important enough, or not worthy of attention. This erosion of self-esteem can spill over into other areas of your life, influencing how you view yourself and your potential. Breaking free from the feeling of invisibility starts with acknowledging it. It's important to recognize that your feelings are valid and that being unseen is not a reflection of your worth, but of the dynamics in the relationship. Understanding this distinction helps you take the first step toward addressing the issue. Open communication is key to combating invisibility. Share your feelings with the other person, using I statements to express how their actions or inactions affect you. For example, you might say, "I feel unimportant when my thoughts are overlooked, and I value our connection too much to let this continue." This approach invites dialogue rather than defensiveness, fostering an opportunity for growth. In some cases, the other person may be unaware of the impact of their behavior. By bringing your feelings to their attention, you give them a chance to reflect and adjust. However, if they dismiss or invalidate your concerns, it may be a sign of deeper issues in the relationship. Mutual respect and effort are essential for addressing invisibility, and without them, meaningful change is unlikely. Building your sense of self-worth is also crucial in overcoming invisibility. Seek validation from within rather than relying solely on external recognition. Remind yourself of your strengths, achievements, and the unique qualities that make you valuable. Surround yourself with people who appreciate and celebrate you, creating a support system that reinforces your sense of worth. Setting boundaries is another important step. If someone consistently makes you feel invisible, let them know what behaviors are unacceptable. Boundaries are not about controlling the other person. They're about protecting your emotional well-being. By establishing clear limits, you take control of your role in the relationship and ensure that your presence is respected. In some cases, the relationship may no longer serve your growth and happiness. Letting go of connections that make you feel invisible is not an act of rejection, but an act of self-respect. It creates space for relationships that recognize and value you for who you are. Healing from the pain of invisibility takes time, but it's a journey worth undertaking. By addressing the issue with honesty and courage, you reclaim your voice and affirm your worth. You deserve to be seen, heard, and valued in every relationship, and taking steps to ensure that is not just empowering, it's transformative. When you prioritize relationships that uplift and acknowledge you, you create a life filled with meaningful connections. You honor your own value and set a standard for how you expect to be treated. Through this process, you not only overcome invisibility, but also build a foundation of respect, support, and authenticity in all your relationships. Feeling invisible within relationships leaves a profound emptiness, especially when it happens in the context of family. The expectation of unconditional support from family is deeply ingrained in many cultures and traditions. Yet, it is a belief that can lead to significant emotional harm. Families are often seen as the ultimate safety net, the people who will always be there no matter what. But when familial bonds begin to harm instead of help, it forces a difficult question. Is unconditional family support a truth, or is it a myth that sometimes needs to be challenged? Family is ideally a source of love, understanding, and guidance, but it is not exempt from the complexities that exist in all human relationships. Unquestioned loyalty to family can often lead to situations where harmful patterns are perpetuated under the guise of obligation. While the idea of unconditional support is comforting, it's not always realistic or healthy. Support without boundaries or accountability can become enabling, leaving one person carrying the weight of the relationship while the other continues harmful behaviors unchecked. One of the most damaging aspects of the myth of unconditional family support is the guilt it creates. Many people feel obligated to tolerate mistreatment or sacrifice their own well-being to maintain family ties, believing that loyalty requires enduring pain. This guilt is often reinforced by cultural or societal messages that family must come first, no matter the cost. However, enduring harm for the sake of family does not strengthen the bond. It corrodes it, leaving behind resentment and emotional scars. Another layer of complexity arises when family members exploit this expectation of unconditional support. They may demand financial help, emotional labor, or constant availability, all while offering little in return. This imbalance can create a dynamic where one person feels trapped, unable to say no without being labeled selfish or ungrateful. Over time, this exploitation erodes trust and makes the relationship feel less like a connection and more like an obligation. Families also have the potential to stifle individuality under the guise of unity. When family members impose expectations about how you should live, what you should value, or who you should become, it can feel like a betrayal of your autonomy. The pressure to conform to familial norms often leads to internal conflict, where the desire to honor family clashes with the need to stay true to yourself. This struggle is particularly painful when family members equate disagreement or independence with rejection. The myth of unconditional support often obscures the reality that not all family bonds are healthy. Toxic family dynamics, such as manipulation, favoritism, or chronic criticism, can have long-lasting effects on mental and emotional well-being. These patterns are especially harmful when cloaked in the language of love and care, making it harder to recognize the damage being done. When family becomes a source of pain rather than comfort, the idea of unconditional support must be re-evaluated. A Stoic perspective provides valuable insights for navigating these complexities. Stoicism teaches that our primary responsibility is to live in accordance with our values and reason. It emphasizes the importance of focusing on what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and responses, while letting go of what lies beyond it. This philosophy encourages us to examine familial relationships with clarity and objectivity, rather than being swayed by societal expectations or emotional guilt. From a Stoic standpoint, the bonds of family should not override the pursuit of virtue and well-being. If a family relationship is consistently harmful, it is not virtuous to tolerate it simply because of shared blood. Stoicism invites us to question whether maintaining such a relationship aligns with our principles, or whether it detracts from our ability to live a fulfilled and meaningful life. This does not mean abandoning family lightly. It means making thoughtful decisions about which connections nurture growth and which ones hinder it. Establishing boundaries is a key step in re-evaluating harmful familial bonds. Boundaries are not a rejection of family, but a way to define what is acceptable and protect your emotional health. They create space for healthier interactions by clarifying expectations and limiting opportunities for harm. For instance, if a family member consistently uses guilt to manipulate you, a boundary might involve calmly stating, "I care about you, but I will not engage in conversations that make me feel guilty for my choices." Stoicism also encourages compassion, even in the face of difficult family dynamics. Compassion does not mean excusing harmful behavior, but rather understanding that people often act out of their own struggles, fears, or limitations. By approaching family conflicts with empathy, you can address issues without being consumed by anger or resentment. Compassion allows you to remain grounded, even when the relationship is challenging. However, compassion must be balanced with accountability. Enabling harmful behavior under the guise of support only perpetuates the problem. Holding family members accountable for their actions is not unkind. It is a way to foster honesty and growth. This might involve having difficult conversations, seeking mediation, or in some cases, creating distance when the relationship becomes too toxic to maintain. Letting go of the myth of unconditional support also means embracing the idea that family is not limited to blood relations. Chosen family, friends, mentors, and other supportive individuals can often provide the love and understanding that biological family cannot. These connections are no less meaningful simply because they were formed outside of traditional definitions of family. By surrounding yourself with people who uplift and value you, you create a network of support that reflects the kind of relationships you deserve. Re-evaluating familial bonds is not an easy process. It requires courage to challenge deeply held beliefs and navigate the emotions that come with redefining relationships. But it is a necessary step toward living authentically and prioritizing your well-being. By approaching family dynamics with clarity, compassion, and a commitment to your values, you can make choices that honor both yourself and the relationships that truly matter. In the end, family is not about enduring harm or sacrificing yourself for the sake of appearances. It is about fostering connections that are rooted in mutual respect, care, and growth. By letting go of the myth of unconditional support, you free yourself to create a life where love is given and received freely, without guilt or obligation. This is not a rejection of family. It is a redefinition of what family means, guided by the principles of truth, virtue, and emotional health. Re-evaluating familial bonds often uncovers deeper patterns, and one of the most pervasive is the use of guilt as a tool for control. Manipulation disguised as obligation can be subtle or overt, but its effects are always damaging. Guilt is a powerful emotion, rooted in a desire to do right by others, yet it can be weaponized to keep you tethered to unhealthy relationships. When guilt replaces genuine connection, the relationship shifts from a place of mutual care to one of control, masked as duty. Guilt-based manipulation begins with the assumption that you owe someone your time, energy, or loyalty, regardless of how their actions affect you. This assumption is often unspoken, but it manifests in behaviors designed to provoke feelings of responsibility or shame. The person leveraging guilt might frame their needs or struggles in a way that implies your failure if you don't meet their expectations. Over time, this dynamic erodes your sense of autonomy, leaving you feeling trapped. One common tactic is emotional overdependence. Manipulators often position themselves as victims of circumstances, highlighting their vulnerabilities and implying that it's your responsibility to care for them. They may express disappointment or sadness when you set boundaries, framing your actions as a betrayal rather than a necessary act of self-care. This creates a cycle where you feel compelled to sacrifice your needs to avoid the sting of guilt. Guilt is also used to enforce compliance through indirect accusations. Statements like, "After everything I've done for you," or "If you really cared, you would," are designed to shift the focus away from the manipulator's behavior and onto your perceived shortcomings. These phrases prey on your desire to be a good person, twisting your natural empathy into a tool for control. They suggest that your worth is tied to how much you're willing to give, regardless of the cost to yourself. Family dynamics often amplify the guilt trap, as cultural or societal norms reinforce the idea that family obligations are sacred and unbreakable. Manipulators may invoke these norms to justify their demands, suggesting that stepping back is a betrayal of familial values. This creates an internal conflict between honoring your well-being and adhering to expectations, making it harder to recognize manipulation for what it is. Another layer of the guilt trap involves leveraging past favors or sacrifices. A manipulator might remind you of times when they helped you, framing their support as a debt that must be repaid indefinitely. This tactic not only dismisses the concept of unconditional care, but also burdens you with a sense of ongoing obligation. It shifts the relationship from one of mutual support to one of transactional exchanges. Guilt can also be invoked through comparisons. Manipulators may highlight how others have met their expectations, implying that you fall short in comparison. This tactic fosters insecurity and a sense of inadequacy, making you more likely to comply with their demands to prove your worth. Over time, this pattern reinforces the idea that your value is contingent on meeting their needs. The effects of guilt-based manipulation extend beyond the immediate relationship. Constantly prioritizing others at the expense of your well-being can lead to burnout, resentment, and a diminished sense of self. You may find yourself second-guessing your choices, unsure of where your obligations end and your autonomy begins. This confusion makes it harder to set boundaries, perpetuating the cycle of manipulation. Breaking free from the guilt trap requires a shift in perspective. Start by recognizing that your worth is not defined by how much you sacrifice for others. You are not responsible for meeting every need or solving every problem, especially when doing so comes at a personal cost. This doesn't mean abandoning compassion. It means balancing empathy with self-respect. Clear boundaries are essential in countering guilt-based manipulation. Communicate your limits firmly and without apology, focusing on what you can realistically offer without compromising your well-being. For example, if someone demands more time than you can give, you might say, "I care about you, but I also need to take care of myself. This is what I can do right now." Boundaries protect both your energy and your sense of autonomy, allowing you to engage in relationships on healthier terms. It's also important to question the narratives that guilt-based manipulation relies on. Reflect on whether the expectations placed on you are fair or reasonable. Ask yourself whether the relationship feels balanced or if it consistently demands more from you than it gives. Challenging these assumptions helps you see the manipulation for what it is, a way to control, not a reflection of your value. Developing self-compassion is another powerful tool for breaking free from guilt. When guilt arises, acknowledge it without judgment, recognizing it as a normal response to manipulation. Remind yourself that prioritizing your well-being is not selfish, but necessary. Self-compassion strengthens your ability to resist manipulation by reinforcing your sense of worth. In some cases, addressing the manipulation directly may be necessary. Approach the conversation with clarity and assertiveness, expressing how their behavior affects you. Focus on your feelings rather than accusing them, which can reduce defensiveness and open the door for meaningful dialogue. For example, you might say, "When you frame things in a way that makes me feel guilty, it's hard for me to feel connected to you. I want our relationship to be based on mutual respect." However, not all manipulators are willing to change. If your efforts to address the issue are met with denial or escalation, it may be necessary to reassess the relationship. Letting go of connections that rely on guilt for control is not an act of abandonment. It's a commitment to your emotional health and self-respect. As you navigate this process, remember that you are not alone. Many people struggle with guilt-based manipulation, especially in close relationships. Seeking support from trusted friends, mentors, or professionals can provide valuable perspective and guidance. They can help you recognize manipulation, set boundaries, and prioritize your well-being. Ultimately, breaking free from the guilt trap is about reclaiming your agency. It's about choosing relationships that empower rather than control, that nurture rather than drain. By challenging manipulation disguised as obligation, you honor your right to live authentically and on your own terms. This journey requires courage, but it leads to a life where your choices reflect your values, not someone else's expectations. Escaping the guilt trap brings clarity to how manipulation can shape relationships, but another subtle force often at play is criticism that lacks care. Feedback and advice, when given thoughtfully, can guide and support. But when criticism becomes harsh judgment, it damages more than it helps, chipping away at confidence and self-esteem. Harmful criticism hides under the guise of honesty or concern, yet its effects linger far beyond the words spoken. Criticism without care strikes a nerve because it bypasses empathy, It focuses solely on pointing out flaws, leaving no room for encouragement or understanding. This type of feedback is rarely about helping you improve. It's often about asserting control, superiority, or frustration. It creates an imbalance where the person giving the criticism holds the power, while the one receiving it is left feeling small or inadequate. One of the most telling signs of harmful criticism is its tone. Instead of offering constructive insights, it takes on a condescending or dismissive attitude. Words like "you always" or "you never" frame the critique as an attack rather than an opportunity for growth. These statements generalize behaviors, turning specific instances into sweeping judgments. They leave no space for dialogue or nuance, making it difficult to address the issue collaboratively. Another aspect of unhelpful criticism is its timing. Careful feedback is delivered when the recipient is ready to listen and the environment is conducive to discussion. Harmful criticism, however, is often given impulsively, during moments of tension or in public settings. This approach prioritizes the critic's need to vent over the recipient's ability to process and respond constructively. It shifts the focus from resolution to embarrassment, further straining the relationship. The intent behind criticism also distinguishes its nature. Constructive criticism seeks to build up, offering solutions and expressing belief in the other person's ability to improve. Harmful criticism, on the other hand, often stems from frustration, resentment, or an unspoken agenda. It may be used as a weapon to assert dominance, deflect attention from the critic's flaws, or manipulate behavior through shame. Harmful criticism is particularly damaging when it targets not just actions, but character. Instead of addressing specific behaviors, it attacks the core of who someone is. Phrases like, "you're so lazy," or "you're impossible to deal with," don't just critique actions, they undermine identity. Over time, this kind of criticism erodes self-worth, leaving the recipient doubting their value and abilities. Another subtle form of damaging criticism is the backhanded compliment. These remarks appear positive on the surface, but carry an underlying sting. Statements like, "you did well this time, surprisingly," or "it's better than usual, I guess," mix praise with doubt, leaving the recipient unsure whether to feel appreciated or insulted. This approach diminishes genuine effort, making it difficult to feel proud of accomplishments. In relationships, harmful criticism often creates a dynamic of fear. The recipient begins to anticipate judgment in every interaction, walking on eggshells to avoid further disapproval. This fear stifles openness, creativity, and authenticity as the focus shifts to appeasing the critic rather than expressing one's true self. It turns the relationship into a minefield where the joy of connection is overshadowed by anxiety. Breaking free from the effects of harmful criticism begins with recognizing its patterns. Reflect on how feedback is delivered and how it makes you feel. If it consistently leaves you feeling worse about yourself rather than motivated to grow, it's a sign that the criticism may be crossing the line into judgment. Acknowledging this distinction is the first step toward addressing the issue. Effective communication is essential in responding to harmful criticism. When faced with judgmental remarks, resist the urge to react defensively or internalize the criticism. Instead, seek clarity by asking questions like, "Can you help me understand what you mean?" or "What do you think I could do differently?" This approach shifts the focus from accusation to dialogue, making it harder for the critic to continue in the same vein. Setting boundaries is also key. Let the other person know how their criticism affects you and what kind of feedback you're willing to accept. For example, you might say, "I value your perspective, but it's easier for me to improve when feedback is specific and constructive." Boundaries not only protect your emotional well-being, but also encourage healthier communication patterns. Developing self-confidence is another important tool for countering harmful criticism. When you have a strong sense of your worth and abilities, you're less likely to internalize judgmental remarks. Surround yourself with people who support and uplift you, and focus on your strengths and achievements. This foundation of self-assurance helps you view criticism more objectively, separating valid points from unnecessary negativity. In some cases, addressing harmful criticism may require a deeper conversation about the dynamics of the relationship. Share your feelings with the other person, emphasizing how their approach affects you and suggesting ways to improve communication. Approach the conversation with empathy, acknowledging their perspective while asserting your needs. This balance fosters mutual understanding and creates an opportunity for growth. However, not all critics are open to change. If the pattern of judgment persists despite your efforts, it may be necessary to reassess the relationship. Letting go of connections that consistently undermine your self-esteem is not an act of weakness. It's a commitment to your well-being. It creates space for relationships that nurture rather than drain you. From a Stoic perspective, harmful criticism can also be reframed as an opportunity for growth. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control others' actions, only our responses. By viewing criticism as information rather than a personal attack, you gain the power to choose how it affects you. This doesn't mean accepting all criticism blindly. It means evaluating its validity and using it as a tool for self-improvement when applicable. Ultimately, criticism without care is not a reflection of your worth, but of the critic's mindset. By addressing it with clarity, boundaries, and self-assurance, you reclaim your power and create an environment where feedback is constructive rather than destructive. This process strengthens not only your relationships, but also your sense of self, allowing you to grow with confidence and resilience. Addressing criticism without care often reveals another challenging dynamic in relationships: the exhausting role of being an emotional rescuer. While offering support to those you care about is an important part of any connection, there's a fine line between helping and becoming someone's constant source of emotional stability. When you find yourself carrying the weight of others' struggles without reciprocity, it's not just draining, it's unsustainable. Being an emotional rescuer often starts innocently, driven by compassion and the desire to help. You step in to listen, console, and guide, offering your energy to ease someone else's pain. However, when this dynamic becomes one-sided, it turns into a burden. The person seeking help may rely on you entirely, rather than taking steps to address their issues. Over time, your emotional resources are depleted, leaving little for yourself. One sign that you've taken on the role of an emotional rescuer is a pattern of repeated crises. Some individuals seem to live in a state of perpetual emergency, always needing your support to navigate their problems. While some challenges are genuine, others may stem from their unwillingness to take responsibility for their choices. This cycle creates a dynamic where you're constantly putting out fires, but the root cause remains untouched. Another indication of this role is the imbalance in emotional labor. In healthy relationships, support is mutual, with both parties offering care and understanding when needed. However, in a rescuer dynamic, the flow is largely one way. You may find yourself pouring time and energy into their struggles while receiving little acknowledgement or support in return. This imbalance leaves you feeling undervalued and exhausted. Emotional rescuers often face unspoken expectations. The person relying on you may not explicitly ask for help, but creates an environment where you feel obligated to step in. This obligation can come from subtle cues, like guilt-laden remarks or an overemphasis on their struggles. Over time, this pressure builds, making it difficult to say no without feeling like you're abandoning them. Another layer of this dynamic is the lack of boundaries. When you prioritize someone else's emotional needs over your own, it's easy for boundaries to blur. They may contact you at all hours, expecting immediate responses, or dominate conversations with their problems. This lack of respect for your time and space erodes your ability to recharge and maintain balance. The role of an emotional rescuer can also lead to enabling behaviors. By constantly stepping in to solve their problems, you may inadvertently prevent them from developing the skills to navigate challenges independently. This dynamic fosters dependency rather than growth, leaving them reliant on you while reinforcing your role as their emotional anchor. One of the most damaging effects of being an emotional rescuer is the toll it takes on your well-being. Constantly prioritizing others' needs leaves little room for self-care or personal growth. Over time, this imbalance can lead to burnout, resentment, and a diminished sense of self-worth. You may begin to feel trapped, unable to break free from the demands placed on you without risking the relationship. Breaking free from the role of an emotional rescuer starts with recognizing the dynamic. Reflect on the patterns in the relationship, asking yourself whether the support you provide is reciprocal and whether it feels like a choice or an obligation. Acknowledging the imbalance is the first step toward creating healthier boundaries. Setting boundaries is crucial to shifting this dynamic. Communicate your limits clearly and assertively, emphasizing the importance of mutual respect. For example, you might say, "I care about you, but I also need time to focus on my own well-being. I'm here for you, but I can't always be the solution to every problem." Boundaries protect your emotional energy and encourage the other person to take responsibility for their growth. Encouraging independence is another important step. Instead of offering solutions, guide them toward finding their own answers. Ask questions that prompt reflection, such as, "What do you think would help in this situation?" Or, "How can you take steps to address this challenge?" By shifting the focus from rescuing to empowering, you help them build the skills to navigate life's challenges. It's also important to cultivate your own support system. Surround yourself with people who uplift and energize you, creating a balance of giving and receiving in your relationships. By prioritizing connections that nurture you, you replenish your emotional reserves and reinforce your sense of self-worth. Practicing self-care is essential for maintaining balance. Make time for activities that bring you joy, relaxation, and fulfillment. Whether it's spending time in nature, pursuing a hobby, or simply resting, these moments allow you to recharge and approach your relationships with renewed energy. Letting go of the rescuer role doesn't mean abandoning those you care about. It means creating a healthier dynamic where support is offered with boundaries and where both parties are empowered to grow. If the other person resists this shift, it may be necessary to reassess the relationship. Staying in a dynamic that drains you is not a sustainable path, and stepping back can be an act of self-preservation. From a Stoic perspective, the role of an emotional rescuer can be reframed as an opportunity to practice wisdom and self-control. Stoicism teaches that we are responsible for our own actions and cannot control others. By recognizing the limits of your influence, you free yourself from the pressure to fix every problem. This perspective allows you to offer support without sacrificing your well-being. Ultimately, breaking free from the burden of being an emotional rescuer is about finding balance. It's about recognizing your own worth and setting boundaries that protect it. By fostering independence in others and prioritizing your own needs, you create relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and growth. This process is not just freeing, it's transformative, allowing you to reclaim your energy and live authentically. Recognizing the burden of being an emotional rescuer often leads to a deeper realization. Without firm boundaries, relationships can easily become unbalanced, leaving one person drained and the other dependent. Boundaries are not walls. They are the guidelines that define what is acceptable in a relationship. They create space for mutual respect, understanding, and personal well-being. When boundaries are absent or unclear, relationships can become suffocating or even harmful, robbing individuals of their peace and autonomy. Setting firm boundaries begins with understanding their purpose. Boundaries are not about rejecting others, but about protecting yourself. They clarify your needs, values, and limits, while offering others a clear framework for interaction. Healthy boundaries foster respect and prevent misunderstandings by ensuring that both parties know what is expected and acceptable. They act as a safeguard, allowing you to engage in relationships without losing yourself in the process. One of the first steps in establishing boundaries is identifying areas where they are needed. Reflect on situations or relationships that leave you feeling uncomfortable, resentful, or drained. These emotions are often signals that your boundaries are being tested or ignored. Whether it's a friend who frequently takes advantage of your time, a colleague who disregards your workload, or a family member who crosses emotional lines, recognizing these patterns helps you pinpoint where boundaries can bring balance. Clear communication is essential when setting boundaries. Ambiguity can lead to confusion, so it's important to articulate your limits in a way that is both respectful and assertive. For instance, if a friend consistently shows up unannounced, you might say, "I value our time together, but I need notice before visits. Let's plan ahead so we can both enjoy it." This approach acknowledges the relationship while clearly stating your preference. Boundaries are most effective when they are consistent. Enforcing them sporadically sends mixed signals, making it harder for others to respect your limits. Consistency reinforces your commitment to your well-being and ensures that others take your boundaries seriously. While it may feel uncomfortable at first, maintaining your boundaries becomes easier with practice and confidence. It's important to recognize that setting boundaries may not always be met with acceptance. Some people may react defensively or attempt to challenge your limits, especially if they've benefited from your lack of boundaries in the past. These reactions are not a reflection of your worth or the validity of your boundaries. They are simply resistance to change. Stand firm, knowing that prioritizing your well-being is not selfish but necessary. Boundaries also require self-awareness and reflection. It's important to understand why certain limits are meaningful to you and to ensure they align with your values. This clarity helps you communicate your boundaries more effectively and respond confidently when they are tested. For example, if you value your time for self-care, expressing this priority makes it easier to decline requests that conflict with it. The role of boundaries extends beyond protecting yourself. They also foster healthier relationships. When both parties respect each other's limits, it creates an environment of trust and mutual understanding. Boundaries encourage open communication and reduce the likelihood of resentment or misunderstandings. They allow each person to show up authentically without fear of overstepping or being taken for granted. Setting boundaries also involves learning to say no without guilt. Many people struggle with this because they fear disappointing others or damaging relationships. However, saying no is an essential part of maintaining balance and ensuring that your commitments align with your capacity. A thoughtful no is far more valuable than an insincere yes, as it reflects honesty and respect for both yourself and the other person. It's equally important to respect the boundaries of others. Just as you have the right to set limits, so do those around you. Listening and honoring their boundaries demonstrates empathy and respect, strengthening the relationship. If someone expresses a boundary that conflicts with your expectations, approach the conversation with curiosity and a willingness to find common ground. Boundaries are not static. They evolve as relationships grow and circumstances change. Regularly reassessing your boundaries ensures they continue to serve you effectively. This flexibility allows you to adapt to new dynamics while maintaining the core principles that protect your well-being. For example, a boundary with a colleague may change as trust develops, allowing for greater collaboration without compromising your personal space. Enforcing boundaries can be challenging, especially when they are met with resistance or disregard. However, it's crucial to remain firm and address violations directly. Use clear, non-confrontational language to remind others of your limits. For example, if someone repeatedly interrupts your personal time, you might say, "I've mentioned that I need this time for myself, and I appreciate your understanding moving forward." Addressing violations promptly prevents them from becoming recurring issues. In relationships where boundaries are consistently ignored or disrespected, it may be necessary to re-evaluate the connection. While ending a relationship is never easy, it can be the healthiest choice when boundaries are persistently crossed. Letting go of relationships that undermine your well-being creates space for connections that honor and uplift you. From a Stoic perspective, boundaries align with the principle of focusing on what is within your control. You cannot control others' actions or reactions, but you can control how you respond and what you allow into your life. Setting boundaries is an exercise in self-mastery, ensuring that your actions reflect your values and priorities rather than external pressures. Ultimately, the importance of setting firm boundaries lies in their ability to empower you. They give you the freedom to engage in relationships authentically and to prioritize your well-being without fear or guilt. By establishing and maintaining healthy limits, you create a foundation for meaningful connections that are rooted in respect, trust, and mutual support. This process not only protects your peace, but also strengthens your sense of self, allowing you to navigate relationships with confidence and clarity. Setting firm boundaries helps you reclaim your space and prioritize your well-being. But sometimes boundaries reveal a deeper truth. Not all relationships are meant to stay. Letting go of connections that no longer serve you can feel like a loss, yet it holds the potential for profound freedom. Releasing relationships with grace is not about anger or bitterness. It's about choosing peace over conflict and growth over stagnation. Letting go begins with acknowledging that some relationships run their course. People change, circumstances evolve, and what once felt aligned can drift into discord. Clinging to something that no longer brings mutual respect or joy only prolongs the discomfort. Accepting this reality is not giving up. It's recognizing when a relationship has reached its natural end and having the courage to release it. One of the most challenging aspects of letting go is the emotional attachment. Shared memories, moments of closeness, and a sense of loyalty can make it hard to imagine life without the connection. However, holding on out of nostalgia or obligation often creates more pain than release. When you view the relationship as a chapter in your story rather than the entire book, it becomes easier to appreciate its value while stepping into what's next. Letting go without bitterness requires a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on what was lost, consider what was gained. Even difficult relationships often come with lessons about boundaries, resilience, or self-awareness. By reframing the connection as a learning experience, you transform pain into growth and find meaning in the journey, even if it didn't end as you hoped. Forgiveness plays a central role in detaching with grace. Forgiveness is not about excusing harmful behavior, but about freeing yourself from the weight of resentment. Carrying anger or bitterness keeps you tethered to the relationship's pain, preventing true closure. Forgiveness allows you to release the emotional grip the relationship has on you, creating space for healing and peace. Detaching without bitterness also means letting go of the need for validation or closure from the other person. While it's natural to want acknowledgement or understanding, relying on it for closure keeps you tied to their responses. True detachment comes from finding your own sense of resolution, independent of their actions or opinions. The process of letting go often involves grieving. Even when a relationship was unhealthy, its end can bring feelings of sadness, guilt, or uncertainty. Allow yourself to feel these emotions without judgment. Grieving is not a sign of weakness, but a necessary step in moving forward. By honoring your feelings, you make space for healing and acceptance. One of the most liberating aspects of letting go is reclaiming your energy. Toxic or draining relationships consume emotional, mental, and even physical resources. Releasing these connections allows you to redirect your energy toward things that nurture and fulfill you. This shift not only improves your well-being, but also opens the door to new opportunities and relationships that align with your values. Letting go with grace also means resisting the urge to dwell on what could have been. Focusing on alternate outcomes or replaying past interactions only deepens the pain of separation. Instead, ground yourself in the present and look forward to the possibilities ahead. Practicing mindfulness can help you stay centered, reminding you that growth comes from accepting what is rather than clinging to what was. Detachment is not just about ending relationships, but about redefining how you engage with them. Sometimes letting go doesn't mean cutting ties entirely, but changing the nature of the connection. This could involve reducing contact, adjusting expectations, or creating boundaries that preserve your peace. These shifts allow you to maintain relationships in a way that feels healthy and balanced. From a Stoic perspective, letting go is an act of aligning with nature. Stoicism teaches that attachment to what is impermanent creates suffering. By recognizing that relationships, like all things, are subject to change, you embrace the flow of life with acceptance and resilience. This perspective helps you detach not out of indifference, but out of respect for the natural course of things. Self-reflection is a key part of the letting go process. Take time to examine what the relationship taught you about yourself, your needs, and your boundaries. Use these insights to strengthen your future connections and deepen your understanding of who you are. Letting go is not just about releasing another person. It's about stepping into a more authentic version of yourself. Surrounding yourself with supportive relationships can ease the transition. Friends, mentors, or loved ones who uplift and encourage you provide a foundation of strength as you navigate the emotions of letting go. These connections remind you that while one relationship may end, others remain to nurture and support you. Practicing gratitude can also transform the letting go experience. Instead of focusing on the pain of separation, acknowledge the good moments and lessons the relationship brought. Gratitude shifts your perspective from loss to appreciation, making it easier to release the connection without resentment. Letting go with grace doesn't mean suppressing your feelings or pretending the relationship didn't matter. It means honoring its impact while choosing to prioritize your peace and growth. It's a process of releasing what no longer aligns with your journey, not with bitterness, but with a sense of hope and possibility. In choosing to let go, you affirm your worth and your right to cultivate relationships that reflect your values. You create space for connections that uplift rather than drain, inspire rather than limit. Letting go is not the end. It's the beginning of a chapter defined by freedom, authenticity, and a deeper sense of self. Through this process, you not only release what no longer serves you, but also step boldly into the life you deserve. Releasing unhealthy connections with grace often leads to a powerful realization. Choosing peace is an act of courage. Prioritizing your emotional health and stability above the expectations of society or culture is not just a decision, it's a declaration of self-respect. Toxic relationships, no matter how deeply rooted in tradition or social norms, are barriers to the peace and fulfillment everyone deserves. Yet, stepping away from these connections often feels like walking against the current, especially when societal or cultural pressures urge you to stay. Choosing peace over toxicity begins with a commitment to your well-being. Emotional health is the foundation of a meaningful life, and it cannot thrive in an environment of constant tension, manipulation, or disregard. Toxic connections, whether they involve persistent negativity, boundary violations, or emotional abuse, erode your sense of self over time. Recognizing these patterns is the first step toward reclaiming your peace. One of the greatest challenges in prioritizing peace is overcoming the guilt that comes from defying societal or cultural expectations. Family obligations, friendship loyalty, or community norms often create a narrative that leaving toxic connections is a betrayal. This guilt is deeply ingrained, yet it often serves as a tool to perpetuate harmful dynamics. Breaking free from this mindset requires understanding that your well-being is not selfish, it is essential. Upholding societal expectations at the cost of your emotional stability is not noble, it is self-neglect. Cultural pressures often glorify endurance in relationships, equating suffering with strength. While perseverance is a virtue, enduring toxicity is not. Healthy relationships involve mutual respect and care, not one-sided sacrifice. Choosing peace means rejecting the idea that your worth is tied to how much discomfort you can tolerate. It's about redefining strength as the ability to prioritize your health and happiness, even in the face of criticism. Another layer of societal expectation involves the fear of judgment. Toxic connections are often maintained to preserve appearances or avoid conflict. The thought of being labeled as disloyal, ungrateful, or selfish can be paralyzing. However, it's important to remember that those who truly care about you will value your peace above societal approval. The opinions of those who judge your choices hold little weight compared to the value of your emotional stability. Choosing peace also means addressing the internal conflict of loyalty. Loyalty is a beautiful quality, but it becomes destructive when it binds you to relationships that harm you. True loyalty is built on mutual respect and shared values, not obligation or fear. By stepping away from toxic connections, you honor the essence of loyalty, loyalty to yourself and your principles. One of the most empowering aspects of choosing peace is reclaiming your energy. Toxic relationships consume more than just time. They drain your mental and emotional resources. Constantly managing conflict, suppressing your feelings, or navigating manipulation leaves little room for joy, creativity, or growth. Releasing these connections allows you to redirect your energy toward pursuits and relationships that enrich your life. Choosing peace often involves setting firm boundaries, not just with others, but also with yourself. It's about recognizing when you are falling into patterns of over-explaining, overcompensating, or overthinking in an attempt to maintain relationships that no longer serve you. By holding yourself accountable to these boundaries, you reinforce your commitment to your well-being. Support systems play a critical role in this journey. Surrounding yourself with people who value and uplift you creates a foundation of strength. These relationships remind you that peace is not a solitary endeavor. It's a shared experience. When you prioritize connections that reflect your values, you build a network that sustains and nurtures you, even in challenging times. Choosing peace over toxic connections also means embracing the discomfort of change. Toxic relationships often create a false sense of stability, making the thought of leaving them intimidating. Yet, staying in these connections out of fear only prolongs the harm. Growth requires stepping into the unknown, trusting that the peace you seek is worth the temporary uncertainty. From a Stoic perspective, choosing peace aligns with the principle of focusing on what is within your control. You cannot control the actions, opinions, or reactions of others, but you can control how you respond and where you direct your energy. Detaching from toxic connections is not an act of rejection, but a practice of self-mastery. It's about creating an environment where your values and well-being can thrive. Choosing peace is not about seeking perfection or eliminating conflict entirely. It's about cultivating relationships and environments where disagreements can be addressed with respect and care, not hostility or harm. Peace is found not in the absence of challenges, but in the presence of mutual effort and understanding. Letting go of toxic connections often involves grieving, even if the relationship was harmful. The loss of shared history, dreams, or familiarity can evoke feelings of sadness or doubt. Allow yourself to feel these emotions fully, recognizing that they are a natural part of the healing process. Grieving is not a sign that you made the wrong choice. It's a testament to the depth of your investment in the relationship. Practicing gratitude can help ease this transition. Focus on the lessons the relationship taught you, even if they came through difficulty. Gratitude shifts your perspective from loss to growth, helping you appreciate the clarity and strength gained through the experience. Choosing peace is not a one-time decision. It's a practice. It requires constant reflection, boundary setting, and reaffirmation of your values. It's about committing to a life where your well-being is not a compromise, but a priority. By choosing peace, you not only transform your own life, but also set a standard for the kind of relationships you deserve. In the end, prioritizing emotional health and stability is the most profound act of self-respect. It's a choice to live authentically, free from the weight of societal expectations or toxic connections. By embracing this freedom, you create a life filled with purpose, joy, and the kind of peace that cannot be shaken. This journey is not easy, but it is transformative, leading to a life where your happiness is no longer a question, it's a certainty. Choosing peace over toxic connections naturally leads to a deeper exploration of how to maintain that peace, even in challenging situations. The ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively is a skill that transforms how you navigate relationships, conflicts, and life itself. Stoic philosophy offers profound insights into this practice, teaching that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering your own mind. To respond, rather than react, is to reclaim your agency and approach life with intention, clarity, and purpose. Reactivity is often rooted in emotion. Anger, fear, frustration, or even excitement can trigger knee-jerk responses that escalate conflicts or lead to regret. Reacting is instantaneous and unfiltered. It bypasses reason in favor of raw emotion. While emotions are natural and valid, allowing them to dictate your actions often creates unnecessary harm. Responding, on the other hand, involves pausing, reflecting, and choosing a course of action that aligns with your values and the situation's needs. One key to training your mind to respond is cultivating awareness. Awareness is the ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without immediately acting on them. It's recognizing the momentary surge of anger when someone criticizes you or the pang of anxiety when plans go awry. Awareness creates a gap between stimulus and response, a space where you can choose how to act rather than being swept away by the intensity of the moment. Stoic thinkers like Marcus Aurelius emphasized the importance of this pause. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This principle reminds us that while we cannot control what happens to us, we can control how we interpret and respond to it. By focusing on what is within your power, you shift your energy from external chaos to internal stability. Breathwork is a practical tool for cultivating this pause. Taking a deep breath slows your physiological response to stress, giving your mind time to process the situation. This simple act interrupts the cycle of reactivity, allowing your rational mind to regain control. Over time, incorporating mindful breathing into your daily routine builds resilience, making it easier to respond thoughtfully under pressure. Perspective is another essential aspect of responding rather than reacting. When faced with conflict or adversity, stepping back and considering the broader picture helps reduce emotional intensity. Ask yourself questions like, will this matter in a week, a month, or a year? Or, what is the most constructive way to address this? Perspective shifts your focus from immediate discomfort to long-term outcomes, guiding you toward wiser decisions. Empathy also plays a significant role in this practice. Understanding the emotions and motivations of others allows you to respond with compassion rather than defensiveness. When someone speaks harshly or behaves unfairly, empathy helps you see beyond their words or actions, to the underlying pain or frustration driving them. This understanding doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it does help you approach the situation with clarity and care. Another cornerstone of Stoic philosophy is the concept of control. The Stoics taught that our control is limited to our thoughts, beliefs, and actions. External events, including the behaviors of others, lie beyond our influence. Reactivity often stems from a desire to control what cannot be controlled, leading to frustration and conflict. By focusing on what you can control, your response, you free yourself from this futile struggle and cultivate a sense of peace. Practicing detachment is also critical. Detachment doesn't mean apathy or indifference. It means not allowing external events to dictate your inner state. When you detach from the need for approval, success, or specific outcomes, you become less reactive to perceived threats or disappointments. Detachment enables you to respond with equanimity, maintaining your balance regardless of the circumstances. Journaling is a valuable practice for training your mind to respond rather than react. Reflecting on your experiences and responses allows you to identify patterns, triggers, and areas for growth. By writing about situations where you reacted impulsively, you can explore what drove those reactions and how you might respond differently in the future. This self-awareness deepens your understanding of yourself and strengthens your ability to respond intentionally. Building this skill also requires patience and practice. Changing ingrained habits of reactivity takes time, especially when emotions run high. It's important to approach this journey with kindness toward yourself, recognizing that setbacks are part of the process. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you reinforce the habit of responding, making it easier to maintain in the future. Stoicism also teaches the value of framing challenges as opportunities for growth. Instead of viewing difficult situations as threats, consider them as chances to practice patience, resilience, and wisdom. This mindset shift transforms adversity from a source of frustration into a tool for personal development. By embracing challenges, you strengthen your ability to respond thoughtfully and effectively. Another practical strategy is to rehearse responses to common triggers. If you know certain situations or individuals tend to provoke strong reactions, prepare how you will respond in advance. Visualize yourself pausing, breathing, and choosing a constructive course of action. This mental rehearsal trains your brain to respond more calmly when faced with the actual situation. Surrounding yourself with supportive influences also strengthens your ability to respond rather than react. Seek out relationships that encourage mindfulness, reflection, and growth. Engage with people who model thoughtful responses and inspire you to do the same. A positive environment reinforces your commitment to this practice and provides valuable feedback on your progress. Choosing to respond rather than react is a daily practice of self-mastery. It's about reclaiming your power to act intentionally, even in the face of strong emotions or challenging circumstances. By training your mind through awareness, perspective, empathy, and detachment, you create a life characterized by clarity, purpose, and inner peace. This practice not only transforms how you navigate the world, but also strengthens your relationships and deepens your connection to your values. Through this journey, you embody the wisdom of Stoicism, demonstrating that true strength lies not in control over others, but in mastery of yourself. Mastering the art of responding rather than reacting reveals a deeper truth. In the face of manipulation, Your response holds the key to freedom. Manipulation thrives on exploiting emotions, vulnerabilities, and unawareness, often trapping individuals in cycles of control without their full awareness. The Stoic approach to avoiding manipulation provides not only clarity, but also tools to protect your autonomy and maintain your integrity, even when others seek to influence you against your will. Manipulation often begins subtly. A carefully worded suggestion, an emotional appeal, or a situation engineered to evoke guilt can easily bypass your defenses if you're unprepared. This subtlety is what makes manipulation so dangerous. It operates under the surface, using your emotions and reactions as leverage. The first step in countering manipulation is awareness, being attuned to how you feel and recognizing when something feels off can alert you to an attempt to control or influence you. Stoic philosophy teaches the importance of maintaining control over your emotions. Manipulators often rely on triggering strong emotional responses, anger, guilt, fear, or even excitement to cloud your judgment. By practicing emotional regulation, you create a buffer between their tactics and your decisions. Marcus Aurelius reminds us that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. This principle empowers you to separate your emotions from external pressures, allowing you to think clearly. Another critical Stoic lesson is the concept of focusing on what is within your control. Manipulation often succeeds by diverting your attention to factors outside your influence, creating a sense of helplessness. By centering yourself on what you can control, your thoughts, actions, and values, you weaken the manipulator's ability to sway you. This practice grounds you in your agency, making it harder for others to dictate your behavior. Manipulators often exploit insecurities or unresolved emotions to gain leverage. Building self-awareness is essential in addressing these vulnerabilities. Reflect on your fears, desires, and triggers, and consider how they might be used against you. This introspection not only helps you recognize manipulation, but also strengthens your ability to resist it. When you know your weaknesses, you can take steps to protect them, preventing others from using them as tools of control. Establishing clear boundaries is another powerful defense. Manipulators thrive in ambiguity, where unclear limits allow them to push further than you might intend. Defining your boundaries, both for yourself and for others, creates a framework that protects your autonomy. These boundaries are not just about saying no. They're about saying yes to the things that align with your values and well-being. Firm but respectful communication of these boundaries ensures that manipulators cannot exploit your kindness or flexibility. Stoicism also emphasizes the importance of discernment. Not all influence is harmful, but discernment helps you distinguish between genuine advice and manipulative intent. By analyzing the motives behind someone's words or actions, you can determine whether their influence aligns with your values or serves their agenda. This critical thinking shields you from falling prey to tactics designed to exploit your trust or emotions. Another Stoic strategy is practicing detachment from outcomes. Manipulators often use the promise of rewards or the threat of consequences to sway decisions. By detaching yourself from the need for specific results, you free yourself from their leverage. Detachment allows you to evaluate situations objectively, choosing actions based on principles rather than fear or desire. Cultivating a strong sense of self-worth is also vital in resisting manipulation. Manipulators often prey on those who doubt their value, using validation or criticism as tools of control. By affirming your worth independently of others' opinions, you become less susceptible to their tactics. This self-assurance acts as a shield, ensuring that your choices are guided by your inner compass rather than external pressure. Stoicism teaches the value of intentional silence. Manipulators frequently rely on eliciting quick reactions, whether through provocation or persuasion. By practicing intentional silence, you create space to process their words and consider your response. This pause disrupts their momentum and gives you time to assess the situation rationally. Silence is not passivity, it's an active choice to reclaim control over the interaction. Practicing gratitude is another way to counter manipulation. While it may seem unrelated, gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, reducing the manipulator's ability to exploit feelings of scarcity or inadequacy. Gratitude fosters a sense of abundance and contentment, weakening the emotional hooks that manipulators rely on to pull you in their direction. Stoic philosophy also encourages aligning actions with values rather than emotions. Manipulators often rely on emotional appeals to bypass logical reasoning. By grounding your decisions in your principles, you create a filter that ensures your choices remain true to your beliefs. This alignment not only protects you from manipulation, but also reinforces your integrity and sense of purpose. Recognizing when to walk away is a fundamental Stoic lesson in avoiding manipulation. Not all battles are worth fighting, and not all relationships can be salvaged. When someone consistently seeks to control or exploit you, the most empowering choice may be to remove yourself from their influence entirely. This decision is not an act of weakness, but a declaration of your commitment to live authentically and free from harmful dynamics. Training your mind to resist manipulation requires vigilance, self-awareness, and practice. It's a journey of reclaiming your agency and ensuring that your actions reflect your values, not the agendas of others. By applying Stoic principles, you create a foundation of resilience and clarity, protecting yourself from control while fostering relationships and decisions rooted in mutual respect and genuine connection. This journey transforms not only how you navigate manipulation, but also how you engage with the world, empowering you to live with confidence and integrity. Resisting manipulation unveils a deeper strength within, the ability to remain unaffected by external pressures. This mastery over oneself, rooted in Stoic philosophy and championed by Epictetus, offers a path to inner resilience. When nothing external can shake your sense of peace, you transcend circumstances and live with clarity and purpose. The principles of Stoicism provide not just tools, but a mindset to navigate life's storms with unshakable calm. One of the core teachings of Epictetus is the dichotomy of control. This principle is simple, yet transformative. There are things within your control and things outside of it. Your thoughts, actions, and choices belong to the former. The opinions, actions, and outcomes of others fall into the latter. By focusing solely on what you can control, you free yourself from unnecessary worry and disappointment. When you relinquish the futile effort to influence the uncontrollable, you reclaim energy and peace. Another guiding Stoic principle is accepting the nature of reality. Life is unpredictable, filled with joys and challenges that often lie beyond your influence. Resistance to this unpredictability breeds frustration, while acceptance fosters serenity. When you embrace reality as it is, rather than as you wish it to be, you align yourself with the flow of life, finding strength in adaptability and perspective. Practicing detachment from outcomes is another pillar of Stoic resilience. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It means committing to your actions and principles without becoming tethered to specific results. By focusing on effort rather than outcome, you maintain your composure regardless of what unfolds. This mindset not only reduces anxiety, but also enhances your ability to navigate setbacks with grace and persistence. Epictetus also emphasizes the power of perception. Events in themselves are neutral. It is your interpretation that assigns them value. If someone insults you, the words are meaningless until you choose to perceive them as offensive. By challenging and reframing your perceptions, you gain control over your emotional responses. This practice empowers you to view difficulties as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles. A key Stoic practice is premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. This involves mentally preparing for potential challenges, not to dwell on negativity, but to build resilience. By considering what could go wrong and how you might respond, you reduce the shock of adversity and strengthen your ability to face it calmly. This exercise sharpens your focus and fortifies your mind, ensuring that no surprise can derail you. Another principle is maintaining a focus on virtue over external validation. Stoicism teaches that true contentment comes from living in accordance with your values, not from seeking approval or success in the eyes of others. When you prioritize integrity, courage, and kindness, external circumstances lose their power to define your worth. This inner alignment creates a sense of fulfillment that is immune to external fluctuations. Epictetus reminds us of the importance of intentional action. Rather than reacting impulsively, consider whether your actions align with your long-term goals and principles. Thoughtful, deliberate choices anchor you in purpose and prevent external chaos from dictating your path. This practice reinforces self-mastery, ensuring that your life reflects your priorities rather than external pressures. Practicing gratitude is another Stoic principle that cultivates resilience. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, reducing the emotional impact of setbacks or disappointments. By appreciating life's gifts, both big and small, you build a foundation of contentment that remains steady, regardless of circumstances. Gratitude transforms challenges into reminders of your strength and resources. The Stoic principle of amor fati, or love of fate, encourages embracing all aspects of life, even the difficult ones. This mindset teaches that every experience, no matter how challenging, contributes to your growth. By welcoming life as it unfolds, you cultivate a sense of peace and purpose that transcends adversity. Amor fati transforms obstacles into stepping stones, making you unshakable in the face of hardship. Epictetus underscores the power of daily reflection. By examining your thoughts, actions, and experiences, you identify areas for growth and celebrate progress. This practice enhances self-awareness and reinforces your commitment to living according to Stoic principles. Reflection keeps you grounded, helping you maintain perspective and resilience in an ever-changing world. Living by these principles creates a life of clarity, strength, and purpose. The external world may remain unpredictable, but your inner world becomes a sanctuary of stability. Through the teachings of Epictetus, you learn that while you cannot control what happens, you can control how you respond. This mastery over yourself is not just resilience, it is freedom. Mastering the art of remaining unaffected by external forces naturally leads to a deeper curiosity. Understanding the intentions and emotions of those around you without exposing your own thoughts. Reading people effectively is not about manipulation. It's about cultivating awareness and perception to navigate interactions with clarity and wisdom. Stoic philosophy, rooted in observation and discernment, offers timeless guidance on understanding human behavior while maintaining your integrity and peace. Understanding others begins with keen observation. People reveal much through their actions, body language, and tone of voice. Often, words are the least reliable indicators of true intent. Actions, however, provide a consistent pattern over time. A person's behavior when they think no one is watching often reflects their genuine character. By training yourself to notice the small details, you gain insights into motivations that may remain hidden behind words. Another cornerstone of reading people is the practice of active listening. Active listening involves not just hearing the words spoken, but also paying attention to how they are said. The pace, pitch, and emphasis in someone's speech can reveal emotions like hesitation, excitement, or insecurity. When you listen fully, without interjecting or planning your response, you create space for understanding that goes beyond the surface. This attention not only reveals the truth, but also builds trust, as people sense your genuine interest. Stoic principles encourage detachment from assumptions. Jumping to conclusions based on limited information can cloud your perception and lead to misjudgments. Instead, adopt a mindset of curiosity and neutrality, allowing observations to guide your understanding. Epictetus reminds us, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This approach not only helps you learn more about others, but also minimizes misunderstandings. A key element of understanding others without revealing yourself is mastering your own emotions. Reacting impulsively to someone's behavior often reveals more about you than it does about them. By maintaining composure, you not only protect your inner state, but also create an environment where others feel comfortable showing their true selves. This balance allows you to observe without inadvertently influencing their actions. Empathy is another powerful tool for reading people. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing with or excusing behavior. It means stepping into someone else's perspective to better understand their feelings and motivations. By considering their experiences, challenges, and values, you gain a clearer picture of why they act as they do. This understanding not only deepens your insight, but also fosters compassion, even in challenging interactions. Body language is often referred to as the unspoken truth in communication. Subtle gestures, facial expressions, and posture provide clues to a person's inner state. For instance, crossed arms or avoiding eye contact may indicate discomfort or defensiveness, while leaning in or maintaining open gestures often suggests engagement or interest. Observing these signals requires practice and attention, but can dramatically enhance your understanding of others. Another Stoic strategy is focusing on patterns rather than isolated incidents. A single action may be misleading, but consistent behavior over time reveals a person's true nature. By observing patterns, you discern whether someone's actions align with their words and values. This consistency, or lack thereof, provides valuable insight into their character and intentions. It's also essential to recognize the influence of context. People's behavior often shifts depending on their environment, stress levels, or relationships. A normally calm individual may appear agitated in high-pressure situations, while someone typically reserved might become expressive around trusted friends. Understanding the context of their actions helps you interpret their behavior accurately and avoid overgeneralizing. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of controlling your focus. When interacting with others, resist the urge to center yourself in the narrative. Instead of wondering how their actions affect you, ask what their behavior reveals about them. This shift in perspective not only enhances your ability to read others, but also minimizes unnecessary emotional entanglement. Another valuable practice is observing how people treat those who cannot offer them anything in return. Acts of kindness or respect toward strangers, subordinates, or service workers often indicate genuine character. Conversely, dismissive or rude behavior in these situations may reveal underlying arrogance or entitlement. These moments often provide more reliable insights than interactions influenced by social expectations. Self-awareness is equally critical in this process. Understanding your biases, triggers, and assumptions allows you to approach interactions with clarity. When you're aware of your tendencies, you can separate your projections from the reality of the other person's behavior. This self-mastery ensures that your observations are objective and free from emotional distortion. Stoic philosophy also teaches the value of patience. Rushing to interpret someone's actions often leads to incomplete or inaccurate conclusions. By allowing relationships and interactions to unfold naturally, you gather more information and form a clearer picture of their character. Patience prevents premature judgments and fosters a deeper understanding over time. While reading others, it's important to respect their autonomy. The goal is not to manipulate or control, but to understand and engage authentically. By approaching interactions with respect and humility, you create space for genuine connection. This balance ensures that your insights serve as a tool for building trust rather than exploiting vulnerabilities. Mindfulness plays a significant role in reading people effectively. By staying present in conversations and interactions, you notice nuances that might otherwise go unnoticed. Mindfulness sharpens your focus and enhances your ability to interpret subtle cues, making your observations more accurate and insightful. Learning to read people is not about being infallible. It's about developing a deeper awareness of the dynamics around you. The practice requires continuous reflection, observation, and adjustment. By combining Stoic principles with practical techniques, you cultivate a skill that enhances your relationships and decision-making. This ability to understand others without revealing your own intentions empowers you to navigate life with wisdom and grace, maintaining your integrity while building meaningful connections. Understanding others deeply without revealing yourself naturally lays the groundwork for dealing with a far more challenging reality: navigating interactions with people who don't respect you. Disrespect can manifest in subtle slights, dismissive attitudes, or outright hostility. Regardless of its form, it has the power to shake your confidence and test your composure. However, Stoic philosophy provides tools to confront such behavior with strength and grace, preserving your dignity and peace of mind. When facing disrespect, the first principle is self-restraint. It is easy to react emotionally when someone disregards you, but reacting impulsively often escalates the conflict and leaves you feeling more unsettled. Instead, channel your focus inward and remain calm. By practicing restraint, you send a powerful message. Your sense of worth is not dictated by their behavior. This refusal to engage emotionally in their negativity demonstrates self-mastery and disarms their attempts to provoke you. The Stoic concept of focusing on what is within your control becomes especially valuable in these situations. Disrespectful behavior is beyond your control. What you can control is your response. Instead of wasting energy trying to change the person, redirect it toward maintaining your composure and clarity. This perspective not only protects your peace, but also prevents the situation from consuming your thoughts and emotions. Another critical approach is setting boundaries. Disrespect often persists because it goes unchecked. Establishing and enforcing boundaries communicates that certain behaviors are unacceptable. These boundaries are not about punishing the other person, but about protecting yourself. Clearly state your expectations and follow through with consequences if they are ignored. For example, if someone continually interrupts you, calmly express that you will finish your point before allowing them to speak. Consistency in enforcing boundaries builds respect over time and discourages repeated violations. Empathy may seem counterintuitive when dealing with disrespect, but it is a powerful tool. People who disrespect others often project their insecurities or frustrations. By understanding the root of their behavior, you can respond with a sense of detachment rather than taking their actions personally. Empathy doesn't mean excusing the behavior. It means recognizing that their disrespect reflects more about them than about you. This perspective reduces the emotional weight of their actions and allows you to respond thoughtfully. Self-awareness is equally essential. When someone disrespects you, it's natural to question whether their actions are a reflection of your own behavior. Reflect on the interaction honestly. Have you inadvertently contributed to the dynamic? If so, acknowledge it and take steps to address it. However, if their behavior is unwarranted, remind yourself that their lack of respect does not diminish your value. This clarity helps you stand firm in your worth without being swayed by their negativity. Another Stoic principle that applies is indifference to insults. Epictetus taught that it's not the insult itself that hurts, but our interpretation of it. If someone speaks harshly or dismissively, their words only have power if you grant it to them. By choosing to remain unaffected, you strip their words of meaning and maintain your inner peace. This practice requires mental discipline, but it is liberating as it allows you to rise above pettiness and preserve your sense of self. Disrespect also provides an opportunity to practice assertiveness. Assertiveness is not aggression. It is expressing your thoughts and feelings with clarity and confidence. Responding assertively to disrespectful behavior sets a standard for how you expect to be treated. For instance, if someone speaks over you in a meeting, calmly but firmly state, "I would like to finish my point." This approach communicates your boundaries without hostility and reinforces your self-respect. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of prioritizing your values over external validation. People who disrespect you often aim to undermine your confidence or force you to seek their approval. By grounding yourself in your principles, you render their tactics ineffective. Remind yourself of your worth and the standards you hold for your behavior. This inner alignment acts as a shield, ensuring that their disrespect does not define you. It's also vital to choose your battles wisely. Not every instance of disrespect warrants a response. Sometimes, the best course of action is to walk away or disengage. This choice is not about avoiding confrontation, but about conserving your energy for situations that truly matter. Walking away from unnecessary conflict is an act of strength, not weakness, as it demonstrates your ability to prioritize your peace over the need to prove a point. Surrounding yourself with supportive relationships is another way to counteract the effects of disrespect. Positive connections provide a foundation of respect and encouragement, reminding you of your value when others fail to see it. By cultivating a strong support system, you ensure that the negativity of a few does not overshadow the respect and appreciation you deserve. Remember that your response to disrespect is a reflection of your character, not theirs. By choosing to respond with dignity and wisdom, you uphold your values and maintain your integrity. This approach not only preserves your peace, but also sets an example for others, demonstrating that respect is earned through composure and self-respect. Dealing with disrespect is never easy, but Stoic principles offer a roadmap to navigate these challenges with resilience and grace. By focusing on self-control, setting boundaries, and grounding yourself in your values, you transform these interactions into opportunities for growth and self-mastery. Through this journey, you not only protect your peace, but also reaffirm your worth, ensuring that no one's actions can diminish your sense of self. Responding to disrespect with wisdom and composure strengthens the foundation for living a life aligned with purpose and integrity. But rising above challenges is only part of the journey. Doing your best in all aspects of life demands focus, intention, and self-mastery. Stoicism, with its timeless principles, offers profound insights to help you achieve your highest potential while maintaining inner peace. These secrets go beyond fleeting success. They guide you toward a life of meaning and excellence. Doing your best starts with clarity of purpose. Without a clear direction, effort can become scattered, leaving you feeling unfulfilled despite your hard work. Reflect on what truly matters to you, your values, aspirations, and the impact you want to create. When your actions align with these priorities, your efforts feel purposeful and rewarding. Marcus Aurelius emphasized this, reminding us to act in harmony with our nature and principles. Focus is another cornerstone of excellence. In a world filled with distractions, concentrating on what's essential is a superpower. Stoicism teaches the value of attending fully to the task at hand, free from the pull of unnecessary concerns. By directing your energy toward meaningful goals rather than trivial matters, you not only achieve more, but also experience the satisfaction of being fully present in your work. Consistency is equally important. Excellence is not about isolated bursts of effort, but about showing up every day with dedication and discipline. Small, consistent actions compound over time, leading to significant results. Epictetus advises that progress comes not from occasional intensity, but from steady practice. Whether you're cultivating a skill, nurturing relationships, or pursuing a long-term goal, consistency builds the foundation for success. Resilience is essential for doing your best, especially when faced with setbacks. Challenges are inevitable, but how you respond defines your journey. Stoicism teaches that obstacles are not barriers, but opportunities to grow stronger. By reframing difficulties as stepping stones, you maintain momentum and learn valuable lessons along the way. This mindset not only keeps you moving forward, but also deepens your capacity for perseverance. Self-awareness plays a crucial role in maximizing your potential. Understanding your strengths, weaknesses, and tendencies allows you to channel your efforts effectively. Regular reflection helps you assess your progress, identify areas for improvement, and refine your approach. This ongoing process ensures that your efforts remain aligned with your goals and that you continue to grow. Another Stoic secret is embracing discomfort as a catalyst for growth. Avoiding challenges or seeking constant ease limits your ability to achieve your best. Voluntary discomfort, whether through physical exertion, difficult conversations, or stepping outside your comfort zone, strengthens your resilience and sharpens your abilities. Each moment of discomfort is an investment in your future self. Equanimity is a key Stoic principle for doing your best. Maintaining calm and balance, regardless of external circumstances, allows you to think clearly and act decisively. When you remain steady in the face of praise or criticism, success or failure, you free yourself from emotional turbulence and focus on what truly matters. Equanimity ensures that your best efforts are guided by wisdom, not fleeting emotions. Gratitude is another powerful tool for achieving excellence. Recognizing the opportunities, resources, and support you have fosters a positive mindset that fuels your efforts. Gratitude shifts your perspective from scarcity to abundance, motivating you to make the most of what you have. It also strengthens your connections with others, creating a supportive environment that enhances your ability to do your best. Self-discipline is at the heart of Stoic practice. It is the ability to act in alignment with your values and goals, even when faced with distractions or temptations. Self-discipline transforms intentions into actions and ensures that your energy is directed toward meaningful pursuits. By cultivating this discipline, you build habits that support your success and deepen your sense of self-respect. Humility is another Stoic secret for doing your best. Recognizing that there is always more to learn keeps you open to growth and improvement. Humility allows you to seek feedback, embrace challenges, and collaborate with others without ego getting in the way. This openness enhances your efforts and ensures that your actions are guided by wisdom rather than pride. Aligning your actions with your values is a cornerstone of Stoic excellence. Doing your best is not just about achieving external success, but about living authentically and with integrity. When your efforts reflect your principles, you experience a sense of fulfillment that goes beyond material achievements. This alignment creates a foundation of meaning and purpose that sustains your efforts. Stoicism teaches the importance of contributing to the greater good. Doing your best is not a solitary endeavor. It is about using your abilities to benefit others and make a positive impact. By serving a purpose larger than yourself, you infuse your efforts with significance and create a legacy that extends beyond your own life. Through these principles, Stoicism offers a framework for achieving excellence while maintaining inner peace. By focusing on clarity, consistency, resilience, and integrity, you elevate your efforts and create a life of purpose and fulfillment. Doing your best becomes not just a goal, but a way of living, a practice that enriches your journey and inspires those around you. Letting go is never easy, but holding on to relationships that harm your growth and peace is even harder. Through these lessons, we've explored the signs that signal when it's time to step back, even from the most personal connections. From recognizing manipulation to prioritizing your emotional health, these Stoic insights remind us that boundaries are not walls, but bridges to a better life, one where respect, mutual care, and growth take center stage. True strength lies not in enduring what harms you, but in choosing what aligns with your values and well-being. If these insights resonated with you, take a moment to share your thoughts below. What lessons stood out to you the most? Are there relationships you've reevaluated based on these signs? Your perspective could inspire someone else to take their own step toward a healthier, more peaceful life. And if you're eager to continue exploring Stoicism and ways to transform your mindset, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell icon so you never miss the next empowering discussion. Let's keep learning, growing, and living authentically together. See you in the next video.